Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 lost the Omnitrix permanently. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Powerless, Humongosaur. Ben roared as the familiar green flash subsided. His body stretched and morphed into the massive dinosaur-like alien, muscles rippling beneath scaly skin as he grew to nearly 12 feet tall. The transformation came just in time to catch Vilgax's fist before it smashed into his face. Ben pushed back against his nemesis, feet digging deep trenches into the asphalt of downtown Bellwood. Seriously, Vilgax. It's been what, 3 months since I kicked your squid face back to space. Some people never learn. Vilgax growled, his red eyes narrowing behind his breathing apparatus. The Omnitrix will be mine, Tennyson. Today is the day I claim my prize. He pressed harder, forcing Ben back several steps. Yeah. Heard it before. Ben twisted and used Vilgax's momentum against him, hurling the warlord through the wall of an abandoned warehouse. Dust and debris exploded outward as Vilgax crashed through concrete and steel. Ben's earpiece crackled. Ben, we've got civilians trapped 2 blocks north, Gwen's voice cut through the chaos. Kevin and I are trying to clear them out, but there's too many. On it. Ben charged forward, each footstep shaking the ground. He rounded the corner to see people fleeing from several of Vilgax's robot drones that were methodically blasting storefronts and vehicles. Humongosaur roared, drawing the drone's attention away from the civilians. Hey, tin cans. Looking for me? He snatched a nearby car, making sure it was empty, and hurled it at the closest drone, crushing it instantly. The remaining drones pivoted, firing red energy beams that scorched Ben's tough hide. He winced but pushed through the pain, closing the distance and smashing 2 more with his fists. Ben, behind you. Kevin's voice shouted through the calm. Ben whirled around to see Vilgax emerging from the rubble, his armor damaged but his eyes burning with hatred. The alien warlord raised his arm, a crimson energy blade extending from his gauntlet. Time for a change of tactics, Ben muttered, slapping the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Green light flashed again. Jet ray. Ben's form shrank and transformed into the aerodynamic, manta ray-like alien. He shot upward just as Vilgax's blade sliced through the air where he'd stood a second before. Banking sharply, Ben fired neuroshock blasts from his eyes and tail, peppering Vilgax with energy. Stand still and face me, Tennyson. Vilgax bellowed, deflecting the blasts with his forearm guards. What, and make it easy for you? Not a chance, squid face. Ben zoomed past, firing continuously while assessing the situation. Below, he could see Kevin, his body coated in concrete, helping people out of a partially collapsed building while Gwen maintained a mana shield against drone fire. A lucky shot from Vilgax clipped Ben's wing, sending him spiraling. He recovered quickly and switched tactics again. Swamp fire. The green flash revealed Ben's plant-based form. He landed in a crouch and immediately hurled fireballs at Vilgax, who charged through the flames undeterred. Getting predictable, Tennyson, Vilgax sneered, grabbing Ben by the throat and slamming him into the pavement. I've studied all your alien forms. I know their strengths and weaknesses. Ben gasped for air, struggling against Vilgax's grip. His hand fumbled for the Omnitrix symbol. Then, maybe, try something new. Another flash. Chroma stone. Energy surged through Ben's crystalline body, absorbing Vilgax's next attack and channeling it back as a powerful ultraviolet beam that sent the warlord flying backward. Ben! Gwen called out as she ran up, her hands glowing with mana. This isn't working. He's not after the city. He's just trying to wear you down. Tell me. Something I don't know, Ben replied, firing another energy blast. How are the civilians? Clear, Kevin said, joining them. His body was now covered in metal from a nearby fire hydrant. But Vilgax's ship is hovering above the city center. He's got something bigger planned. Ben nodded, his crystalline face set with determination. Then let's end this now. He tapped the Omnitrix again. Ultimate Humongousaur. Ben's body grew even larger than his regular Humongousaur form, with a shell-like armor covering his back and shoulders. His hands transformed into bioorganic missile launchers as power surged through him. Alright, team. Kevin, flank left. Gwen, right. I'll take him head-on. Ben charged forward, missile launchers primed. Let's finish this. Vilgax rose from the crater where Ben's last attack had sent him, armor smoking and damaged. He drew a small device from his belt, something Ben hadn't seen before. You're right, Tennyson. It's time to finish this. Vilgax pressed a button, and a pulsing red field extended around him. Ben fired a barrage of biomissiles, but they slowed dramatically upon hitting the red field, giving Vilgax time to simply step aside. Whatever the device was, it was manipulating time around him. What the? Ben started, before Vilgax moved with impossible speed, appearing directly in front of him. A time dilation field, Vilgax explained with cruel satisfaction. Courtesy of Ian's technology. You move slower, I move faster. Before Ben could react, Vilgax landed a devastating punch to his armored chest, cracking the plating. Ben staggered backward, surprised by the force behind the blow. Gwen. Kevin. Stay back. Ben called out, seeing his cousin preparing to attack. He's got some kind of time tech. Vilgax pressed his advantage, each blow landing with precision against Ben's defenses. Even Ultimate Humongousaur's strength and armor weren't enough against Vilgax's time-enhanced attacks. Ben switched forms rapidly, trying to find an advantage. XLR-8. Speed against speed, but even the fastest alien in his arsenal moved like molasses compared to Vilgax inside the time field. Diamond Head. Crystalline shields formed just in time to block Vilgax's blade, but they shattered under the concentrated force. Big Chill. Intangibility helped him dodge, but Vilgax seemed to anticipate his movements, hurting him exactly where he wanted. With each transformation, Ben felt the Omnitrix growing hot against his wrist. He was cycling through aliens too quickly, pushing the device to its limits. What's the matter, Tennyson? Vilgax taunted, landing another blow that sent Ben crashing through a storefront. Running out of tricks. Ben rolled to his feet, transforming again. Echo, echo. He split into multiple copies, surrounding Vilgax and unleashing a wall of sonic screams. The sound waves visibly distorted the red time field, causing it to flicker. Vilgax grimaced, his movement slowing. Clever, but not enough. He adjusted the device, stabilizing the field. Maybe not alone, Ben replied. His duplicates continued their sonic assault while the original slapped the Omnitrix again. Ultimate Echo Echo. The sonic discs embedded in his upgraded form detached, flying around Vilgax in a tight formation and amplifying the sonic attack. The time field began to collapse under the concentrated sonic pressure. Vilgax roared in frustration as his advantage disappeared. With a desperate lunge, he tackled Ben, both of them crashing into the street. They rolled, trading blows, Vilgax's strength against Ben's sonic powers. The Omnitrix, Vilgax hissed, grabbing for Ben's wrist. Give it to me. Never. Ben created a sonic force field, pushing Vilgax back. He recalled his sonic discs, preparing for a final attack. That's when he noticed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest glowing not green but angry red, pulsing erratically. What the, Ben? Gwen shouted, sensing the danger. She threw up a mana shield around both Ben and Vilgax just as the Omnitrix began to emit a high-pitched whine. Overload. Ben realized too late. The rapid transformations, the stress of the battle, and maybe something from Vilgax's time device had destabilized the Omnitrix. Everyone get back. Vilgax's eyes widened with realization, but instead of retreating, he grabbed Ben's wrist, determined to rip the Omnitrix away before it could self-destruct. Let go. Ben tried to break free, but Vilgax's grip was unyielding. If it's destroyed, all is lost. Vilgax growled, his clawed fingers digging into the Omnitrix's surface. The device's whine reached a fever pitch. Ben felt heat building, saw cracks forming along the Omnitrix's surface, green energy leaking out. With a final desperate move, he kicked Vilgax away and shouted, "Gwen! Shield! Now!" Gwen reinforced her mana bubble just as the Omnitrix exploded in a blinding flash of green energy. The force shattered Gwen's shields and threw everyone back. Windows for blocks around blew out from the shockwave. When the light faded and the dust settled, Ben lay in the center of a small crater, back in his human form. His arm extended, wrist upturned, and bare. Where the Omnitrix had been, only scorched skin remained. Ben! Gwen and Kevin rushed to his side, helping him sit up. "Are you okay?" Ben stared at his wrist in shock. The Omnitrix was gone, not detached, not deactivated, but completely destroyed. Fragments of green and black technology were scattered around the crater, already turning dull as the energy within them dissipated. "It's gone." Ben's voice was barely audible. 10 years of his life, from when he was 10 years old until now at 20, the Omnitrix had been part of him. His identity, his purpose, his power, all gone in an instant. "Vilgax?" Kevin asked, looking around warily. "Teleported away when the Omnitrix started to destabilize," Gwen answered, her eyes still glowing with mana sight. "He's off-planet now." Ben barely heard them. He picked up a fragment of the Omnitrix, a small piece of the faceplate with the hourglass symbol now dark and lifeless. It crumbled to dust between his fingers. "We need to contact Grandpa Max," Gwen said, helping Ben to his feet. "And Azimuth. Maybe they can." "It's gone, Gwen," Ben interrupted, his voice hollow. "Really gone. I can feel it." For the first time in a decade, Ben felt truly small. Human. Ordinary. The weight of that realization hit him harder than any of Vilgax's blows. 3 days later, Ben sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the bandage wrapped around his wrist. The burns had mostly healed, another reminder that he no longer had alien DNA to accelerate his recovery. The room felt unusually quiet without the occasional beep or glow from the Omnitrix. His phone buzzed for the 100th time. More messages from friends, teammates, even former enemies who'd heard the news. Ben ignored it. A knock at his door broke the silence. "Ben." Grandpa Max's voice called out. "Can I come in?" Ben sighed. "Yeah." The door opened, and Max Tennyson entered, still in his plumber uniform. His weathered face showed concern, but also determination. "How's the wrist?" "Fine." Ben flexed his hand. "Just a bit sore." Max nodded, sitting beside Ben on the bed. "I just got off a call with Azimuth." Ben looked up sharply. "And? Can he build another one?" The hesitation in Max's eyes told Ben everything before he even spoke. "Azimuth says the Omnitrix's core was completely destabilized. The explosion didn't just destroy the device, it altered the quantum signature of your DNA that allowed it to bond with you in the first place." "Meaning what, exactly?" Ben demanded, though he suspected he already knew. "Meaning even if Azimuth built another Omnitrix tomorrow, it wouldn't work for you. The connection is gone, Ben. Permanently." The words hung in the air between them. Permanently. No going back. No quick fix. No heroic comeback with a new, improved watch. "So that's it then." Ben stood up, pacing the room. 10 years as a hero, and now I'm just, regular Ben Tennyson again. "You were never just anything, Ben," Max said firmly. "The Omnitrix didn't make You a hero. You were chosen because you already had what it takes. What it takes to do what, exactly? Ben gestured to his bare wrist. I can't transform anymore. I can't fly or shoot fire or go intangible. What am I supposed to do when the next alien invasion hits? Throw rocks. You know better than that. Max stood, placing his hands on Ben's shoulders. You've got 10 years of experience fighting alongside aliens, learning their weaknesses, understanding tech no other human has ever touched. That knowledge doesn't disappear just because the watch is gone. Ben shrugged away from Max's grip. Knowledge doesn't stop laser beams. No, but this might help. Max pulled something from his pocket, a small badge with the plumber insignia. I want you to come train at headquarters. Officially. Ben stared at the badge. He already had plumber status because of the Omnitrix, but this was different. This was an invitation to be a plumber on his own merits. I don't need your pity, Grandpa. This isn't pity. Max's voice hardened. This is practical. The universe knows Ben Tennyson. Knows your face, your tactics, your allies. With or without the Omnitrix, you're still a target and still a resource. So you can either sit here feeling sorry for yourself, or you can get back out there and find a new way to be the hero I know you are. Ben wanted to argue, but the look in his grandfather's eyes stopped him. It wasn't sympathy, it was the same look he'd given 10-year-old Ben after he first found the Omnitrix. Expectation. Belief. When do I start? Ben finally asked, taking the badge. Max smiled slightly. Now. Gwen and Kevin are waiting outside. There's reports of Argit selling illegal tech down at the docks. Nothing major, but a good first test run for the new arrangement. New arrangement? You'll see. Max headed for the door. 5 minutes, then we roll. After Max left, Ben looked down at the plumber badge, then at his bare wrist. 10 years of muscle memory made him want to twist the Omnitrix dial, transform into something fast or strong or unstoppable. Instead, he opened his closet and pulled out a jacket, one with enough pockets to carry whatever tools he might need now. His eyes landed on an old shoebox shoved in the back. Inside were souvenirs from past missions, a Galvan microtool kit, a small energy pistol that Tetrax had given him, and a pair of custom combat gloves Kevin had made that increased punching force tenfold. Human tools for a human hero. 5 minutes later, Ben walked out the front door to find the Rust Bucket 3, Kevin's modified plumber ship, parked in the driveway. Gwen and Kevin leaned against it, both in their battle gear. Took you long enough, Kevin remarked, though his usual sarcasm was tempered with something like concern. You okay? Gwen asked, studying her cousin carefully. Ben adjusted the gloves on his hands and checked the energy pistol at his hip. No. But I will be. Let's go catch Argit. The dock smelled of fish and rust, sea air mixing with industrial fumes. Ben crouched behind a stack of shipping containers, watching Argit nervously pace beside a small hover truck. The rat-like alien kept checking his watch and glancing toward the harbor. Buyers are late, Ben whispered into his communicator. Argit's getting twitchy. Argit's always twitchy, Kevin responded from his position on the warehouse roof. I count 4 guards, all armed with level 5 tech. Nothing we haven't handled before. Ben, are you sure you want to be point on this? Gwen asked, her voice concerned. Kevin and I can take the lead. Ben felt a flash of irritation. I'm not an invalid, Gwen. I know Argit better than either of you. He checked his gear one last time. Stick to the plan. I'll approach from the front, keep him talking. Kevin, take out the guards quietly. Gwen, be ready with containment fields if anything goes wrong. Copy that, Kevin replied, a hint of newfound respect in his voice. Ben took a deep breath and stepped out from his hiding place, walking casually toward Argit with his hands in his pockets. It felt strange approaching a hostile alien without the Omnitrix ready to activate. Naked, almost. Arjit spotted him immediately, his spines rising in alarm. Tennyson. What are you doing here? His eyes darted to Ben's wrist, confusion crossing his face when he didn't see the Omnitrix. Evening, Arjit. Interesting business hours. Ben kept walking closer, maintaining eye contact to keep Arjit's attention away from Kevin, who was silently taking down the first guard. This is a legitimate business meeting. Arjit protested, backing up against the hover truck. I'm just selling some, collectibles to enthusiasts. Collectibles? Ben raised an eyebrow, nodding toward the crate Arjit had left open. Inside gleamed what looked like modified incursion blasters. Pretty dangerous for collectibles. Arjit's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Where's the watch, Tennyson? Some kind of new stealth mode? Let's just say I'm downsizing. Ben kept advancing. Now, we can do this the easy way, or, one of the guards spotted Kevin and shouted a warning. Instantly, the docks erupted into chaos. Blaster fire lit up the night as Arjit's remaining guards opened fire. Ben dove for cover behind a concrete barrier, drawing his energy pistol. Without alien transformations, he couldn't just charge in or tank the hits. He'd have to be smarter, more careful. Gwen, shield Kevin. I'll flank left. Ben shouted into his comm. He sprinted between containers, using the labyrinth of cargo to approach from an angle the guards weren't watching. A guard stepped around a corner, blaster raised. Ben didn't hesitate, his training kicked in. He ducked the first shot, closed the distance before the guard could fire again, and used the enhanced gloves to deliver a stunning blow to the alien's midsection. The guard dropped like a stone. One down, Ben muttered, grabbing the fallen blaster as backup. Meanwhile, Gwen had created a mana platform that lifted Kevin above the battlefield. He dropped down behind two more guards, absorbing the metal from a container and knocking their heads together. Two more down. Kevin called out. Ben spotted Arjit trying to start the hover truck. Oh no, you don't. He aimed carefully and shot the truck's hover drive. The vehicle dropped to the ground with a crash. Arjit squealed in panic, abandoning the truck and making a run for the water. Ben cut him off, vaulting over a stack of crates and landing directly in his path. Going somewhere? Look, Tennyson, we can make a deal. Arjit's hands went up. I've got information, good stuff. About Vilgax. Ben froze. What about Vilgax? Word is he's injured bad. That explosion did a number on him. But he's telling everyone he destroyed the Omnitrix, taking full credit. Is it true? Did Squidface actually beat you? Something hot and angry flared in Ben's chest. Vilgax didn't beat anyone. The Omnitrix overloaded. So it's really gone. Arjit's eyes widened, then narrowed calculatingly. That's worth something to the right people. Lot of folks who'd pay to know Ben 10 is just Ben now. Ben grabbed Arjit by his vest, lifting him off the ground. Is that a threat? And no. Just an observation. Arjit squirmed. Look, I'm just saying, maybe we can help each other. I keep quiet about your situation, and you let me go with a warning. For a moment, Ben was tempted to accept the deal. The fewer people who knew about the Omnitrix's destruction, the better. But that wasn't how heroes operated. No deal. Ben dropped Arjit as Gwen and Kevin arrived. Cuff him and call for transport. Gwen created mana restraints around Arjit's wrists while Kevin contacted Plumber HQ. Ben stood back, holstering his weapon and feeling strangely unsatisfied. The adrenaline rush wasn't the same without transformations, without pushing alien powers to their limits. You did good, Ben, Gwen said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Did I? Ben glanced at Arjit. 4 guards and 1 small-time crook. I used to take down armies. Yeah, well, baby steps. Kevin shrugged. Besides, you've got a pretty mean right hook for a human. Thanks. I think. Ben flexed his hand inside the power glove. It wasn't the same as Humongousaur's strength, but it was something. A plumber transport ship arrived minutes later, lights flashing as it descended to the dockyard. The ship's bay doors opened to reveal Grandpa Max and a team of plumbers. Nice work, team, Max said, surveying the captured weapons and criminals. His eyes lingered on Ben. Especially you. First mission back is always the hardest. Ben nodded, not trusting himself to speak. As the plumbers loaded Arjit and his guards onto the transport, Gwen pulled Ben aside. He's right, you know. You did great tonight. It's not the same, Gwen. Ben ran a hand through his hair. I kept reaching for the Omnitrix that wasn't there. Every instinct I have is built around having those powers. Then you'll develop new instincts. Gwen's tone was matter-of-fact. You've always been adaptable, Ben. That hasn't changed. Ben wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. What if this is it? Small-time busts and backup roles. I used to save the universe on a regular basis. And you will again, Gwen insisted. Just, differently. Before Ben could respond, his plumber badge beeped with an incoming message. He unclipped it from his belt. Tennyson here. Ben, it's Rook. His former partner's voice came through clearly. I am on Earth orbit with an urgent matter. Can you meet me at headquarters? Ben exchanged looks with Gwen and Kevin. On my way. What's happening? It is better explained in person, Rook replied, his usual formal tone tinged with concern. But it involves reports of several planets experiencing technological failures after contact with an unknown energy signature. The pattern is familiar. Ben's spine straightened. Familiar how? A pause. The affected technology turns red and black before failing completely. The energy signature matches historical records of malware. Ben felt the blood drain from his face. Malware, one of his most dangerous enemies, a galvanic mechamorph gone rogue, corrupted and twisted by hatred. An enemy Ben had believed destroyed years ago. That's impossible, Ben said, though he'd learned that impossible rarely meant much in his line of work. Nevertheless, the evidence is compelling, Rook replied. And there is more. The pattern of incidents appears to be moving toward Earth. Ben looked down at his bare wrist, then back up at Gwen and Kevin, who had heard everything through their own badges. We're on our way, Ben said, closing the connection. His mind raced with implications. Malware, a being specifically adapted to corrupt and control. Technology, was possibly returning at the exact moment Ben had lost the Omnitrix. The timing couldn't be coincidence. Ben. Gwen's voice cut through his thoughts. What are you thinking? Ben squared his shoulders, pushing down his doubts and fears. If malware really was back, the universe needed Ben Tennyson, Omnitrix or not. I'm thinking we've got work to do. Plumber headquarters beneath Bellwood looked the same as always, a hub of alien technology and activity, with species from across the galaxy working together to maintain peace on Earth and beyond. What was different was how people looked at Ben as he walked in with Gwen and Kevin. Word had spread fast. Sideways glances. Whispered conversations that stopped when he got close. Even alien plumbers who had fought alongside Ben seemed uncertain how to treat him now. Ignore them, Kevin muttered, shooting glares at the more obvious gawkers. Ben pretended not to notice, keeping his focus on the mission ahead. They took the elevator to the command center, where Rook and Grandpa Max were waiting with a holographic display of the galaxy. Ben. Rook greeted him with a nod, his eyes briefly flickering to Ben's wrist before meeting his gaze again. Thank you for coming quickly. What we got? Ben asked, skipping pleasantries and moving straight to the hologram, where several planets were highlighted in red. 7 planets in the past month have reported identical technological malfunctions, Max explained, expanding the display to show more detail. Systems corrupted, turned red and black, and then completely shut down. In 3 cases, the corruption spread to connected systems before being contained. Classic malware behavior, Ben observed, studying the pattern. But we destroyed him years ago. How could he be back? That is the question, Rook agreed. The incidents follow a clear trajectory. He traced a line through the affected planets, extending it directly to Earth. At the current pace, whatever is causing this will reach Earth in approximately 2 weeks. Ben frowned, noting something odd about the pattern. These aren't random planets. Galvan Prime, Petropia, Koros, these are all homeworlds of aliens in the Omnitrix. The room fell silent as everyone processed that connection. You think this is targeted? Gwen asked. At you specifically? Or at the Omnitrix, Ben said quietly. Which is gone now. Max zoomed in on the most recent incident. The corruption on Koros specifically affected their weapons systems and communication arrays. Warlord Gar reported his entire defense grid went dark simultaneously. And nobody's actually seen malware? Kevin asked. Just his effects. Correct, Rook confirmed. The corruption is detected only after it has already spread. No visual confirmation of malware himself. Ben crossed his arms, thinking. Something about this didn't add up. Malware was many things, but subtle wasn't one of them. His attacks were usually direct, personal, especially when it came to Ben. We need more information, Ben decided. If this really is malware, we need to know how he survived and what he's after. Agreed, Max said. Which is why we're sending a team to investigate the most recent incident on Koros. Rook will lead, with Gwen and Kevin providing backup. And me? Ben asked, already suspecting the answer. Max hesitated. Ben, without the Omnitrix, I know more about malware than anyone in this room, Ben interrupted. I've fought him multiple times. I know how he thinks, how he operates. It's too risky, Max insisted. If this is malware, he has a personal vendetta against you. And right now, you're vulnerable. The word stung, even though Ben knew they were true. Without alien transformations, he was at a severe disadvantage against an enemy like malware. So what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait? Actually, Rook interjected, I was hoping you would assist with analysis. Your experience with malware could help us identify patterns we might miss. Ben recognized the offer for what it was, a bone thrown to make him feel useful while keeping him safely out of harm's way. But looking at the concerned faces around him, he realized pushing the issue wouldn't help. Fine, he conceded. I'll stay and analyze the data. But I want real-time comms during the mission. If you encounter anything malware-related, I need to know immediately. Deal, Max agreed, looking relieved. The team ships out in 3 hours. Ben, in the meantime, I'd like you to review all our files on malware and flag anything that might be relevant. As the others moved to prepare for the mission, Gwen lingered behind with Ben. You okay with this? She asked quietly. Ben shrugged. Do I have a choice? You heard Grandpa. I'm vulnerable now. He's just concerned, Ben. We all are. This is new territory for everyone. Yeah, well, being sidelined feels like bench warming in high school all over again. Ben logged into a computer terminal, pulling up the plumber files on malware. Just, be careful out there, okay? If this really is malware, don't underestimate him. Gwen squeezed his shoulder. We won't. And this isn't permanent, Ben. You'll find your place in all this. After she left, Ben stared at the screen, scrolling through images and reports of his past encounters with malware. The corrupted galvanic mechamorph had been one of Ben's most personal enemies, a being obsessed with the Omnitrix almost as much as Vilgax, but for different reasons. Where Vilgax wanted the power, malware wanted to corrupt it, to turn its abilities toward destruction. A thought struck Ben, cold and troubling. What if malware somehow knew about the Omnitrix's destruction? What if this whole pattern of attacks was a response to that news, or worse, somehow connected to it? Ben shook his head. He was being paranoid. The timing was just a coincidence. It had to be. But as he continued reviewing the files, the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Malware had always been calculating, patient when needed. What if this was all part of some larger plan? And what if, without the Omnitrix, Ben was powerless to stop it? 3 hours turned into 4, then 5. Ben remained at the console, cross-referencing data, searching for patterns that might explain malware's possible return. His eyes burned from staring at screens, but he pushed through the fatigue. This was his contribution now, analysis instead of action. The mission team had departed on schedule, Rook piloting with Gwen, Kevin, and 2 additional plumbers on board. They were due to reach Koros within 12 hours, barring any complications. You should get some rest. Ben looked up to find Grandpa Max standing beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Ben, who accepted it gratefully. I'm fine, Ben insisted, taking a long sip. The coffee was strong and black, exactly how he needed it. You've been at this for hours without a break, Max pointed out, pulling up a chair. Even before the Omnitrix, you were never this focused on research. Ben rubbed his eyes. Yeah, well, things change. They do, Max agreed, studying the screens Ben had filled with notes and connections. Finding anything useful? Maybe. Ben pulled up a timeline he'd constructed. The attack started almost exactly when the Omnitrix was destroyed. That can't be coincidence. You think malware somehow knew? I think someone knew. The question is how. Ben leaned back in his chair, stretching his stiff muscles. There's something else bothering me. These attacks, they're not destructive enough. Max raised an eyebrow. 7 planets with critical systems failures isn't destructive. Not for malware, Ben explained. When malware corrupts technology, he doesn't just shut it down. He transforms it, weaponizes it. These attacks are more like probes. Testing defenses, gathering information. For what purpose? That's what I can't figure out. Ben stood up, pacing the small area. It's like he's looking for something. Or someone. Max's expression grew more concerned. You think he's looking for you? For the Omnitrix? Maybe. Ben stopped pacing, a new thought occurring to him. Or maybe he already found what he was looking for, and now he's coming to confirm it. Before Max could respond, an alert sounded from the console. An incoming transmission from Rook's team. Ben quickly accepted the call. Rook. You're early. What's happening? Rook's face appeared on screen, the image slightly distorted from interstellar interference. Ben, we've discovered something concerning. The corruption pattern on Koros is more extensive than reported. What do you mean? It appears the initial attack was merely a diversion, Rook explained. While Warlord Gar's forces were dealing with their defense grid failure, something infiltrated their ancient archive. Ben frowned. Archive? What would malware want with Tetramant historical records? Not historical records, Gwen's voice came through as she moved into view beside Rook. Star maps. Specifically, maps of pre-plumber space lanes and hidden hyperspace routes. Routes that wouldn't be monitored by modern tracking systems. A chill ran down Ben's spine. He's trying to move undetected. Precisely, Rook nodded. And there's more. We found trace energy signatures matching malware's unique radiation. It is definitely him, Ben. Any visual confirmation? Security footage? Nothing clear, Gwen said. Just shadows and system glitches. But we found something else, a message embedded in the corruption. A message? For who? Rook and Gwen exchanged looks before Rook answered. For you, Ben. It simply said, the watch is gone. Now comes the reckoning. Ben felt the blood drain from his face. Malware knew. Somehow, he already knew about the Omnitrix's destruction. There's one more thing, Kevin added, joining the others on screen. We tracked the energy signature as far as we could. It's definitely heading toward Earth, but it's moving faster than we initially calculated. How much faster? Max asked. It'll be in Earth's vicinity within 3 days, not 2 weeks, Kevin answered grimly. Ben's mind raced. 3 days. Not nearly enough time to prepare, especially not without the Omnitrix. We're heading back now, Rook said. We should arrive approximately 12 hours before malware, assuming our calculations are correct. Good, Max nodded. We'll alert all Earth-based plumbers and set up early detection systems. If malware's coming, we'll be ready. The transmission ended, leaving Ben and Max in silence for a moment. He's coming for me, Ben finally said. This is personal. All the more reason for you to stay protected, Max replied firmly. Malware was dangerous enough when you had the Omnitrix. Without it, I'm just the guy who beat him multiple times, Ben interrupted. Omnitrix or not, I know malware better than anyone. I need to be on the front lines when he arrives. Max sighed, recognizing the determination in his grandson's eyes. We'll discuss strategy when the team returns. In the meantime, I want you training with the new plumber tech I've been developing. What kind of tech? Ben asked, curiosity piqued. The kind that might give you a fighting chance. Max gestured for Ben to follow him. Come on. If you're going to face malware as a human, you need every advantage we can give you. The training room in plumber headquarters was empty at this late hour, the large space echoing with their footsteps as Max led Ben to a secure door at the far end. This is something I've been working on for a while, Max explained, placing his hand on a scanner. Originally designed for human plumbers operating in high-risk alien environments. The door slid open to reveal what looked like an equipment room. Inside, mounted on a central stand, was what appeared to be a suit of armor, sleek, mostly black with green accents that reminded Ben of the Omnitrix's color scheme. Whoa! Ben approached the suit, circling it with interest. What is this? Prototech armor, Max said proudly. Reverse engineered from various alien technologies we've encountered over the years. It won't give you transformation abilities, but it does enhance strength, speed, and durability to near superhuman levels. Ben ran his hand along the armor's surface, feeling the smooth, almost liquid texture of the material. And you're just giving this to me? I've been saving it, Max admitted. Hoping you'd never need it, but preparing just in case. After what happened with the Omnitrix, well, the time seemed right. Ben examined the armor more closely. The chest piece featured a subtle plumber insignia, and the gauntlets looked like they contained built-in weapon systems. What can it do? He asked. The full capabilities would take hours to explain, but the highlights include force field generation, limited flight via jet boosters, energy weapon systems, and an adaptive interface that learns your fighting style. Max tapped a control panel, and the armor separated into components. It's designed to be worn under your clothes when inactive, then deploy fully in seconds when needed. Ben picked up one of the gauntlets, testing its weight. It was surprisingly light. This might actually work. There's more. Max opened a cabinet, revealing an array of smaller devices. Specialized tools based on the alien transformations you used most frequently. Nothing as powerful as the originals, but they might give you some familiar options in a fight. Ben examined the tools, a compact grappling system reminiscent of Spider-Monkey's abilities, a portable heat generator inspired by Heat Blast, a personal phase shifter that mimicked Big Chill's intangibility for short bursts. You've been busy, Ben remarked, genuinely impressed. I've always believed in being prepared, Max said simply. Now, let's get you fitted and start training. 3 days isn't much time to master all this tech. For the next several hours, Ben trained intensively with the proto-tech armor and tools. The learning curve was steep. Without the instinctive connection he'd had with his alien forms, Ben had to consciously think through each movement, each activation. But with each passing hour, the movements became more fluid, more natural. The armor responded to his neural patterns, anticipating his actions and enhancing his natural abilities. It wasn't the same as being 4-arms or XLR-8, but it gave him a fighting chance against threats that would otherwise outmatch a human completely. By dawn, Ben was exhausted but satisfied with his progress. The armor now felt like an extension of himself rather than a cumbersome addition. He still missed the versatility of the Omnitrix, but for the first time since its destruction, he felt like he might be able to continue as a hero. Not bad, Max said as Ben completed a complex maneuver, using the armor's flight capabilities to evade a series of training drones before taking them out with precision energy blasts. Your accuracy has improved significantly. Ben landed, the armor's boots absorbing the impact smoothly. It's getting easier. Still not as intuitive as the Omnitrix, but I'm adapting. That's always been your greatest strength, Ben, Max said, shutting down the training program. Not the watch, but your ability to adapt, to find solutions no one else sees. Ben deactivated the armor, the components contracting until they resembled nothing more than a fitted undersuit with slight bulk at the joints and chest. With regular clothes over it, no one would notice anything unusual. Thanks, Grandpa. Ben rolled his shoulders, feeling the pleasant ache of muscles well used. For everything. Get some rest, Max advised. The team will be back in about 10 hours, and then we need to prepare for Malware's arrival. Whatever he's planning, it won't be simple. Ben nodded, but as he left the training room, his thoughts remained troubled. Malware's message echoed in his mind, the watch is gone. Now comes the reckoning. What exactly was Malware planning? And even with this new armor and tech, would Ben be ready to face him? Ben managed a few hours of restless sleep in one of the plumber barracks before returning to the command center. Rook's ship was still several hours out, but preparations for Malware's possible arrival were already underway. Plumbers were establishing sensor arrays around the planet, and Earth's governments had been quietly alerted to a potential Level 5 alien threat. Ben stood at the main view screen, studying the projected path of Malware's approach based on the energy signatures detected. If the calculations were correct, Malware would enter Earth's solar system near Jupiter, using the gas giant's magnetic field to mask his final approach to Earth. Clever, Ben murmured to himself. Using old smuggling routes and natural phenomena to stay hidden. Talking to yourself now, Tennyson. First sign of madness. Ben turned to find Kevin walking toward him, looking tired but alert. Behind him came Gwen and Rook. You're back early, Ben observed, surprised. Pushed the engines to the limit, Kevin explained with a hint of pride. Figured this wasn't the time for a leisurely cruise. Any updates while we were in transit? Rook asked, moving straight to business. Ben nodded. 2 more planets reported technological failures consistent with Malware's signature. He's definitely on the move, and definitely heading here. Gwen studied her cousin carefully. You look different. Ben smiled slightly. Grandpa's been keeping me busy. He tapped his chest, where the proto-tech armor lay dormant beneath his shirt. Got some new toys. The proto-tech project? Rook's eyes widened with interest. Magister Tennyson mentioned it was still in development. Nothing like a crisis to accelerate R&D, Ben shrugged. It's not the Omnitrix, but it gives me options. Kevin crossed his arms skeptically. Against Malware? The guy who absorbs and corrupts tech. Wearing high-tech armor seems like walking into a lion's den covered in steak sauce. Kevin. Gwen elbowed him sharply. What? It's a valid concern. It is, Ben acknowledged. But Grandpa and I built in safeguards. The armor uses isolated power cells and circuit pathways. If one section gets corrupted, it can be jettisoned without compromising the whole system. Rook nodded approvingly. A wise precaution. Still, direct confrontation with malware should be avoided if possible. Agreed, came Max's voice as he entered the command center. Which is why we're implementing a containment strategy rather than direct engagement. The team gathered around the central holodeck as Max brought up a detailed tactical display of Earth's defenses. Our plan is threefold, Max explained. First, early detection using a net of specialized sensors attuned to malware's energy signature. Second, isolation, we'll use modified null-void projectors to create a containment field around him once detected. And third, neutralization using this. Max held up what looked like a small, silver cylinder. What is it? Ben asked, peering at the device. A quantum destabilizer, Max answered. Designed specifically to disrupt the unique energy pattern that keeps malware cohesive. One shot should revert him to a dormant state that we can then safely contain. And if that fails? Kevin asked bluntly. Then we move to Plan B, Max said grimly. Full plumber response, with all available agents and resources. Ben studied the quantum destabilizer. Who's taking the shot? The room fell silent. Everyone knew what Ben was really asking: would he be allowed on the front lines when malware arrived? You know malware's patterns better than anyone, Max finally said. But you'll be operating as tactical support, not primary engagement. Ben wanted to argue but held his tongue. At least he wouldn't be completely sidelined. What about evacuation protocols? Gwen asked. If malware targets civilian infrastructure like he did on Koros, already in motion, Max assured her. Key locations have been quietly secured, and emergency response teams are on standby. The planning continued for hours, going over every contingency, every possible scenario. Ben contributed where he could, drawing on his extensive experience with malware to anticipate potential attack vectors and vulnerabilities. As the meeting wound down, Rook pulled Ben aside. You seem different, he observed. More focused. Ben hadn't really thought about it, but Rook was right. Without the Omnitrix, he'd been forced to rely more on strategy and planning than raw power. I guess losing the Omnitrix changed my perspective. Can't just dial up an alien to solve problems anymore. Perhaps that is not entirely negative, Rook suggested carefully. Your strategic abilities were always impressive, but often overshadowed by the Omnitrix's capabilities. Are you saying I relied too much on the watch? Ben asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his tone. Not at all, Rook clarified. Merely that other skills you possess are now having an opportunity to develop further. Before Ben could respond, the command center's alarms blared. Red lights flashed as officers rushed to stations. What's happening? Ben demanded, running to the main console where a plumber technician was frantically working controls. Unauthorized transmission coming through all channels, the technician reported. It's overriding our communications array. The main view screen flickered, static clearing to reveal a sight that made Ben's blood run cold. Malware, or something that resembled him, filled the screen. His form had changed since Ben had last seen him, more streamlined but still recognizably the corrupted galvanic mechamorph, with his asymmetrical body and glowing red circuitry patterns. Greetings, Earth, malware's distorted voice echoed through the command center. And especially to you, Ben Tennyson. I know you're watching. Ben stepped forward instinctively, placing himself in front of the screen as if facing malware directly. I've been away for some time, malware continued, evolving, growing stronger. Imagine my surprise when I detected the unique energy signature of the Omnitrix's destruction. At first, I couldn't believe it, my greatest enemy, suddenly vulnerable. Malware's single eye narrowed with malicious pleasure. I've spent years planning my revenge against you, Tennyson. Planning how I would destroy the Omnitrix and everything you hold dear. And now, half my work is already done. How is he broadcasting this? Max demanded of the technicians. Can we trace it? Trying, sir, a technician responded. The signal's bouncing through multiple relay points. It could be coming from anywhere. On screen, malware continued. I'll be arriving soon to complete what Vilgax started. To show the universe that Ben Tennyson without his precious Omnitrix is nothing. No hero. No threat. Nothing but an insignificant human waiting to be erased. Ben's hands clenched into fists, the proto-tech armor beneath his clothes subtly responding to his rising anger by hardening its structure. I could destroy your world from afar, malware taunted. But where would be the satisfaction in that? No, I want to see your face when everything you've built crumbles. When everyone realizes their so-called hero can no longer save them. Malware leaned closer to whatever camera was capturing him, his eye glowing brighter. 24 hours, Tennyson. That's how long you have before I arrive. 24 hours to make peace with your failure. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Well, Kevin finally said, breaking the tension, guess the element of surprise is officially gone. Ben turned to face the team, his expression set with determination rather than fear. Good. Now we know exactly what he wants. You, Gwen said softly, concern evident in her voice. Me, Ben agreed. Which means we can use that against him. He turned to Max, Grandpa, we need to adjust the plan. For the next hour, Ben outlined a new strategy, one that would use malware's obsession with him as bait for a trap. It was risky, placing Ben in the center of danger, but it had the highest probability of success. I don't like it, Max said when Ben finished. You're putting yourself directly in malware's path. That's where I'll be regardless, Ben argued. He's coming for me specifically. We might as well use that to our advantage. The plan has merit, Rook admitted reluctantly. Malware's fixation on Ben does create a tactical opportunity. Gwen and Kevin exchanged worried looks but didn't object outright. 24 hours, Max finally said. That's how long we have to perfect this plan and make sure every contingency is covered. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Ben nodded, feeling a strange calm settling over him. After days of uncertainty and adjustment to life without the Omnitrix, having a clear purpose, even a dangerous one, felt right. Malware wanted to prove Ben was nothing without the watch. This was Ben's chance to prove him wrong. The 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation and planning. The proto-tech armor was refined further, with additional safeguards against malware's specific type of technological corruption. Ben trained intensively with the specialized tools, pushing himself to master in hours what would normally take weeks. Plumber teams positioned the modified null-void projectors at strategic locations around Bellwood, the most likely target for malware's arrival based on past patterns. Civilian evacuations were conducted under the guise of a chemical leak, clearing the potential battlefield of innocent bystanders. As the deadline approached, Ben stood alone on the roof of an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Bellwood. This was the location they'd chosen for the confrontation, isolated enough to minimize collateral damage, but close enough to their support systems to implement the plan. Ben checked the proto-tech armor one last time, running through the mental activation sequence that would deploy it instantly when needed. The specialized tools were secured in compartments around his belt, ready for quick access. His communicator beeped. Ben, we've got something, Gwen's voice came through. Energy signature matching malware's just entered Earth's atmosphere. Location? Ben asked, scanning the night sky. Moving fast, trajectory puts him at your position in approximately 3 minutes. Copy that. Ben took a deep breath, centering himself. Everyone in position. Affirmative, Rook confirmed. Null void projectors online and ready. Kevin and I are at position Alpha, Magister Tennyson and Gwen at position Beta. Remember the plan, Ben said. No one moves until I give the signal. Be careful, Ben, Gwen added softly. Malware's always been unpredictable. That makes two of us, Ben replied with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. The communicator went silent as Ben continued watching the sky. The plan was solid: let malware approach, engage him in conversation to keep him focused on Ben, then activate the null void projectors to create a containment field while Max fired the quantum destabilizer from a concealed position. Simple in theory. But plans rarely survived first contact with the enemy. A streak of red light cut across the night sky, descending rapidly toward the factory. Ben steeled himself, mentally rehearsing the moves and contingencies they'd planned. The light grew brighter, closer, until it slammed into the ground 100 yards from where Ben stood, sending up a shower of dirt and concrete. When the dust settled, a familiar silhouette rose from the small crater. Malware had arrived. Ben Tennyson. Malware's distorted voice carried across the empty lot as he approached slowly, savoring the moment. Facing me alone. Brave, or foolish? Maybe a little of both, Ben replied, standing his ground. Though I have to say, you're looking a little different these days. Malware's form had indeed evolved significantly. He was more streamlined, less chaotic in his construction, with the red energy that powered him flowing more uniformly through defined channels across his body. I've been upgrading, Malware said, spreading his arms to display his new form. Absorbing technologies across the galaxy, incorporating their best features. Becoming more than I was. Still look like a walking computer virus to me, Ben shrugged, deliberately projecting nonchalance while carefully gauging the distance between them. Not close enough for the null void projectors yet. Malware's eye narrowed. Always with the jokes, Tennyson. Even now, when you have nothing. No Omnitrix. No transformations. No power. He stepped closer, predatory. I've waited years for this moment. To see you weak. Vulnerable. Human. If you think the Omnitrix was what made me a hero, you've learned nothing, Ben replied, subtly shifting his stance to a combat-ready position. Malware laughed, a harsh, electronic sound. Oh, I've learned plenty. I've studied you, Tennyson. Every battle, every victory. And I've concluded that without your precious device, you are nothing extraordinary. Care to test that theory? Ben challenged, needing to draw Malware closer for the plan to work. With pleasure. Malware's arm morphed into a cannon, red energy building at its center. But first, a question. How does it feel? To be powerless, knowing what you once were. The question hit closer to home than Ben wanted to admit, but he pushed past it. I'm not powerless, Malware. Never was. The Omnitrix was a tool, a great one, sure, but the decisions, the strategies, the will to keep fighting? That was all. Me. Pretty words, Malware sneered. Let's see if they hold true when you're facing destruction. Malware fired a blast of red energy directly at Ben. This was the moment. Ben activated the Prototech armor, feeling it deploy instantly from its dormant state, encasing him in protective technology within a fraction of a second. The armor absorbed most of the blast's impact, though the force still sent Ben sliding backward. He recovered quickly, using the armor's enhanced reflexes to roll and come up in a fighting stance. Malware paused, his eye widening slightly at the sight of the armored Ben. New toys. Interesting. But ultimately futile. We'll see about that, Ben replied, then tapped his communicator twice, the signal that Malware was in position. Nothing happened. Ben tapped again, more urgently. Still nothing. The null void projector should have activated, creating the containment field around Malware. Problem with your plan, Tennyson? Malware asked, amusement evident in his tone. Looking for these, perhaps? Malware's body shifted, revealing what looked like parts of the null void projectors incorporated into his form. I detected them the moment I entered Earth's atmosphere, malware explained smugly. Absorbed them before you even knew I had arrived. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate your trap? Ben's mind raced. Plan A was compromised. Time for Plan B. Gwen, Kevin, Rook, go loud. Ben shouted into his communicator as he activated the armor's offensive systems, firing energy blasts at malware while diving for cover. Malware deflected the blasts easily. Your friends can't help you, Tennyson. I've isolated this area with a signal dampening field. It's just you and me, as it should be. Ben cursed under his breath. Malware had outmaneuvered them, separating Ben from his support team. But that didn't mean he was defenseless. Fine, Ben said, drawing one of the specialized tools from his belt, the heat generator. Just like old times, then. He activated the device, channeling its energy through the armor's projection systems to create a concentrated flame blast reminiscent of heat blast's powers. The fire struck malware directly, causing parts of his body to glow and distort from the extreme temperature. Interesting, malware commented, quickly adapting his structure to resist the heat. You've tried to replicate your alien powers. Creative, but pale imitations at best. Ben didn't waste breath responding, instead switching tactics. He activated the phase shifter, feeling the strange sensation as his molecules partially destabilized. Like big chill's intangibility, but with limitations, it would only last seconds. He charged forward, passing through malware's next energy blast and directly through malware himself. As he emerged on the other side, Ben deactivated the phase shifter and simultaneously triggered the compact grappling system, firing it at a support beam on the factory roof. The line went taut, yanking Ben upward and away from malware's grasp just in time. From his elevated position, Ben assessed the situation. Without the null void projectors, they couldn't contain malware. Without team communication, he couldn't coordinate a new plan. He was on his own. Malware fired another blast, destroying the support beam Ben had grappled to. Ben detached quickly, using the armor's jet boosters to control his descent and land on a different section of the roof. Running already, Tennyson. Malware taunted, his body stretching upward to follow. What happened to the hero who never backed down? Who says I'm backing down? Ben countered, buying time while his mind worked through options. The quantum destabilizer was still with Grandpa Max. If Ben could find a way to contact the team, or make it to one of their positions. Malware reached the roof, his body flowing over the edge like liquid metal. I expected more of a challenge, even without the Omnitrix. Perhaps I overestimated you all these years. Ben needed to change the dynamic. Malware thought he had the upper hand, and technologically speaking, he did. But there was one advantage Ben still had, he knew malware's psychology. Or maybe, Ben suggested, straightening his posture, you're afraid to truly test yourself against me. Even now, you're relying on cheap tricks, signal jammers, ambushing our tech. Not exactly the honorable victory you've dreamed about, is it? Malware paused, his single eye narrowing. What are you implying? I'm saying if you want to prove you're superior, do it fairly. Ben deactivated the armor's helmet, exposing his face. A calculated risk. Face me directly. No absorption of my tech, no interference with communications. Just you and me, testing skill against skill. Unless you're not confident you can win that way. It was a gamble, appealing to malware's ego and his obsession with proving himself. The corrupted galvanic mechamorph had always harbored deep insecurities, constantly seeking validation of his worth and power. For a long moment, Malware considered, his form shifting subtly as he processed the challenge. Finally, he responded. Very well, Tennyson. Your primitive psychology is transparent, but I'll indulge you. No absorption of your armor, no signal jamming. The air around them seemed to clear as Malware deactivated whatever technology had been blocking communications. Ben's communicator immediately buzzed with concerned voices from the team. Ben. Ben, can you hear us? Gwen's worried voice came through. I'm here, Ben responded quickly. Malware disabled the null void projectors. We're on the factory roof. I need the quantum destabilizer. On our way, Max confirmed. Hold position. Malware observed the exchange with amusement. Calling for help already? And here I thought you were going to prove your worth alone. I never said I would fight stupid, Ben replied, reactivating his helmet. A good tactician uses all available resources. Indeed. Malware's arm transformed into a blade. Shall we begin, then? Before your reinforcements arrive? Ben activated the armor's combat systems, feeling the enhanced strength and reflexes flow through him. It wasn't the raw power of forearms or the speed of XLR-8, but it was enough to give him a fighting chance. Let's go, Ben said, dropping into a fighting stance. Malware struck first, his blade arm slashing in a wide arc that Ben barely evaded. The armor's predictive systems helped him anticipate the attack, but Malware was faster than Ben remembered. Ben countered with a powered punch that connected solidly with Malware's midsection, the impact sending ripples through the corrupted being's form. But Malware recovered almost instantly, his malleable body absorbing and redistributing the force. Is that all? Malware taunted, lashing out with tentacles that wrapped around Ben's arm. Ben activated a short electrical burst from the armor, forcing Malware to release him. He followed up with a combination of strikes, using the armor's enhanced speed to land several hits before Malware could adapt. For a moment, Ben felt a surge of confidence. The armor was performing well, and he was holding his own against an opponent who had challenged him even with the Omnitrix. Then Malware changed tactics. Instead of attacking Ben directly, he targeted the roof beneath them, his energy blasts collapsing the structure. Ben activated the jet boosters, trying to escape the collapsing roof, but Malware anticipated the move. A tendril wrapped around Ben's ankle, dragging him down as they both crashed through multiple floors of the factory. They landed hard in what appeared to be an old manufacturing area, dust and debris raining down around them. Ben rolled away from Malware, the armor absorbing much of the impact but still leaving him disoriented. Impressive technology, Malware commented, rising from the rubble unharmed. But ultimately just a crutch, a poor substitute for what you've lost. Ben climbed to his feet, running a quick diagnostic on the armor. Minor damage to the left leg servos, but otherwise functional. Better than nothing. Is it? Malware circled slowly. Or does it simply delay your acceptance of what you've become? A has-been hero, desperately clinging to relevance. The word stung, touching on doubts Ben had been fighting since losing the Omnitrix. But he pushed them aside, focusing on the task at hand. You talk too much, Ben said, activating one of the specialized tools, the sonic projector based on Echo's powers. He directed a concentrated sound wave at Malware, disrupting the cohesion of his form. Malware staggered, parts of his body destabilizing under the sonic assault. Ben pressed the advantage, closing the distance and landing a series of powered blows to Malware's most vulnerable points. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Malware struggled to maintain his form, unable to counter effectively against the combination of sonic disruption and physical attacks. Then something changed. Malware's body began to adapt, absorbing the sonic energy and redirecting it. The red circuitry patterns across his form glowed brighter as he consolidated his structure. Enough. Malware roared, releasing a pulse of energy that knocked Ben backward into a wall. I indulged your challenge, but my patience has limits. Ben's armor absorbed most of the impact, but warning lights flashed in his helmet display. The power cells were draining faster than anticipated. The continuous combat against a high-level threat was pushing the prototype beyond its designed parameters. Ben, we're 2 minutes out, Max's voice came through the communicator. Just hold on. 2 minutes. Ben needed to buy time. Malware advanced methodically, no longer treating the fight as a challenge but as execution. I've studied you for years, Tennyson. Every transformation, every tactic. I know all your moves, with or without the Omnitrix. Then you should know, Ben replied, pushing himself back to his feet, that I never give up. He activated the phase shifter again, his last resort. The device would only work for a few seconds before needing to recharge, but it might be enough. As Malware fired another energy blast, Ben phased, letting the attack pass harmlessly through him. The moment the phase shifter deactivated, Ben launched forward, using the armor's remaining power to enhance his speed and strength for one final assault. He landed a devastating uppercut that actually lifted Malware off his feet, following with a barrage of strikes that pushed the corrupted being back. For a brief, glorious moment, Ben thought he might actually win through sheer determination and skill. Then the armor's power levels reached critical. The enhanced strength faltered mid-punch, leaving Ben vulnerable. Malware capitalized immediately, his arm transforming into a hammer-like appendage that caught Ben in the midsection, sending him crashing across the factory floor. The armor's emergency protocols activated, diverting remaining power to life support and basic functions. Ben lay on his back, the helmet retracting automatically to conserve energy, leaving his face exposed. Malware approached slowly, savoring his victory. This is what I wanted to see. The great Ben Tennyson, defeated. Helpless. Ben struggled to rise, but the armor had locked into a semi-rigid state to protect his body. Without power, it was more hindrance than help. Any last words, hero? Malware stood over him, arm transforming into a cannon pointed directly at Ben's face. Despite the pain and the fear, Ben managed a smile. Just 3, you're still predictable. Confusion flickered in Malware's eye, just as a brilliant beam of energy struck him from behind. The quantum destabilizer shot hit perfectly, the specialized energy rippling through Malware's form. No. Malware screamed, his body beginning to destabilize, red circuitry flickering and fading. Not again. Not when I was so close. Grandpa Max stepped into view, the quantum destabilizer still aimed at Malware. Behind him came Gwen, Kevin, and Rook, ready for battle. It's over, Malware, Max declared as the corrupted being continued to destabilize. But even in defeat, Malware found defiance. With the last of his coherent energy, he reached toward Ben. If I am to be defeated again, I will not go alone. This time, Tennyson, you join me in oblivion. A surge of corrupted energy shot from Malware's disintegrating form, striking Ben before anyone could react. Pain unlike anything Ben had experienced coursed through him, centered on his wrist, the same wrist where the Omnitrix had been. As Malware finally collapsed into a dormant, crystallized state, Ben lost consciousness, the world fading to darkness around him. Beeping. Steady, rhythmic beeping was the first thing Ben became aware of as consciousness slowly returned. He felt weightless, disconnected from his body, but gradually sensation returned, along with pain. Ben opened his eyes to find himself in the plumber medical bay, surrounded by monitoring equipment. The Prototech armor had been removed, replaced with a medical gown. Bandages covered his right wrist and extended partially up his arm. He's awake. Gwen's voice came from nearby. She moved into his field of vision, relief evident on her face. Ben, can you hear me? Yeah, Ben managed, his throat dry and voice raspy. What happened? Malware's last attack, Rook explained, stepping forward. It appears to have been a targeted energy burst designed to affect the quantum signature of your DNA, the same signature the Omnitrix once bonded with. English, please, Ben requested, still feeling foggy. He tried to corrupt you the way he corrupts technology, Kevin translated, leaning against the wall nearby. Since you had the Omnitrix so long, your DNA has traces of its energy signature. Malware went after that. Ben tried to process this information, but his mind felt sluggish. Did it work? Am I corrupted? No, Grandpa Max said firmly, entering the room. Azimuth arrived while you were unconscious. He was able to neutralize the corrupted energy before it could fully integrate with your system. Azimuth is here. Ben tried to sit up, but winced as pain shot through his bandaged arm. Easy, Gwen cautioned, helping him adjust to a slightly more upright position. Yes, he came as soon as we contacted him about Malware's return. The little guy was actually worried about you, Kevin added with a smirk. Though he'd never admit it. Max checked the monitors before continuing. Malware has been contained in a specialized stasis field. Azimuth is preparing to transport him to a secure facility on Galvan Prime. And what about me? Ben asked, looking down at his bandaged wrist. What did Malware's attack do? The others exchanged glances, a silent communication that immediately put Ben on edge. What? He demanded. Whatever it is, just tell me. Your DNA was already altered from years of using the Omnitrix, Max explained carefully. Malware's attack targeted those alterations specifically. According to Azimuth, the damage is permanent. Ben felt his stomach drop. Permanent how? The quantum signature that would allow you to use an Omnitrix device has been irreversibly corrupted, Rook said, his usual directness somehow gentler. Even if Azimuth were to build another Omnitrix, I couldn't use it, Ben finished, the full implication hitting him. Ever. The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of the monitors. Ben stared at his bandaged wrist, emotions warring within him. He had been holding on to a small hope that someday, somehow, he might get the Omnitrix back. Now even that possibility was gone. I'll leave you to rest, Max finally said, squeezing Ben's shoulder gently. Azimuth wants to speak with you when you're ready. After the others had filed out, leaving only Gwen, Ben finally asked the question weighing on his mind. What happens now? With everything? Gwen sat on the edge of the bed. That depends on you, Ben. What do you want to happen? I don't know, Ben admitted. I've been Ben 10 for so long. I'm not sure who Ben Tennyson is without the Omnitrix. Maybe that's what you need to find out, Gwen suggested. And maybe losing the Omnitrix isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's just the beginning of a new one. Before Ben could respond, the door slid open to reveal Azimuth, the diminutive Galvan genius who had created the Omnitrix. He hopped onto the bed, his large eyes examining Ben critically. You look terrible, Azimuth declared. Thanks, Ben replied dryly. Good to see you too. Azimuth harumphed, moving closer to inspect the bandaged wrist. Malware's attack was precisely calculated. He knew exactly what he was targeting. My chance of ever using the Omnitrix again, Ben said bitterly. Yes, Azimuth confirmed without sugarcoating. The quantum signature is beyond repair. No Omnitrix-class device will ever bond with your DNA again. The blunt confirmation hurt more than Ben expected. So that's it then. End of the line. For Ben 10, perhaps, Azimuth agreed. But not necessarily for Ben Tennyson. Ben looked at the Galvan with surprise. What do you mean? I've been observing your activities since the Omnitrix's destruction, Azimuth explained. Your response to losing its power has been interesting. Interesting how? You adapted. Innovated. Used your knowledge and experience rather than raw power. Azimuth paced the small area of the bed. In some ways, you've demonstrated more genuine heroism in the past week than in years of wielding the Omnitrix. Ben wasn't sure how to respond to that. Thanks. I think. It wasn't entirely a compliment, Azimuth clarified with typical Galvan directness. More an observation. The Omnitrix was never meant to be a crutch, yet at times, you treated it as such. Gwen cleared her throat. Azimuth, maybe now isn't the time for, no, he's right, Ben interrupted. I did rely on it too much sometimes. Took it for granted. Azimuth nodded. The question now is, what will you do without it? It was the same question Ben had been asking himself since the Omnitrix was destroyed. But facing malware, protecting people even without alien powers, had given him a glimpse of an answer. "I'll do what I've always done," Ben decided, his voice growing stronger. "Protect people. Fight the bad guys. Find a way to make a difference." "As a human?" Azimuth asked, watching Ben carefully. "As whatever I am now," Ben replied. "Human with 10 years of alien experience. That has to count for something." A hint of what might have been approval flickered across Azimuth's face. "Indeed." He hopped down from the bed, heading toward the door. "Rest, Ben Tennyson. Your body needs time to recover from Malware's attack." "Azimuth," Ben called after him. "Thank you. For coming. For helping." The Galvan paused, not turning around. "The Omnitrix may be gone, but my responsibility toward you remains. We created a connection the day you found my device, one that transcends the technology itself." With that cryptic statement, Azimuth left, leaving Ben to ponder his words. "What do you think he meant by that?" Ben asked Gwen once they were alone. "I think," Gwen said thoughtfully, "he was saying you're still part of something bigger, Omnitrix or not." Ben nodded, feeling a strange mix of loss and possibility. The Omnitrix was gone forever, that reality was something he would have to accept fully now. But maybe, just maybe, there was still a hero's path forward for plain old Ben Tennyson. "Get some rest," Gwen advised, standing to leave. "Kevin, Rook, and I will handle things for now." As she reached the door, Ben called out, "Hey, Gwen. Do you think Grandpa would let me keep that Prototech armor? I have some ideas for improvements." Gwen smiled, recognizing the spark of determination in her cousin's eyes, a spark that had nothing to do with the Omnitrix and everything to do with who Ben truly was. "I think that can be arranged," she said. "Welcome back, Ben." As the door closed behind her, Ben looked down at his bandaged wrist one last time. The Omnitrix was gone, and with it, Ben 10. But Ben Tennyson remained, and perhaps that had been enough all along. Chapter 2, Human after all 6 months without the Omnitrix. 183 days of being just Ben Tennyson instead of Ben 10. Not that Ben was counting or anything. "Rook, you've got movement on your 6, Ben said into his comm, eyes locked on the holographic display floating above his command station. From his position in the Plumber Mobile Command Unit parked 3 blocks away, he tracked 5 heat signatures converging on his partner's location. "Kevin, how's that bypass coming?" "Almost there," Kevin grunted through the comm. "These Forever Night security systems are more sophisticated than usual. Somebody's been upgrading their tech." Ben zoomed in on the warehouse district layout, fingers dancing across the controls to highlight potential escape routes. "Gwen, I need containment fields at these exit points. They're going to bolt when they realize we're onto them." "On it," Gwen replied, her voice steady as always. Ben leaned back in his chair, taking a moment to admire how smoothly the operation was going. 6 months ago, he'd have been front and center in the action, smashing through walls as Humongosaur or zipping around as XLR-8. Now he orchestrated from behind the scenes, and honestly, it wasn't half bad. The command unit door slid open as Grandpa Max entered, carrying 2 cups of steaming liquid. "Thought you could use this," he said, setting one beside Ben. Ben grabbed the cup and took a sip, then immediately regretted it. "Ugh, what is this? Tastes like motor oil mixed with tree bark." "Centaurian Nerve Tonic," Max replied with a grin. "Keeps you sharp for hours. Or gives me a new alien tongue without the fun of actually transforming," Ben muttered, but took another sip anyway. The stuff was growing on him, which was probably a bad sign for his taste buds. Max studied the tactical display. "Your team's performing well under your coordination. You've really taken to the strategic side of things." "Yeah, well, when punching bad guys as forearms isn't an option anymore, you adapt." Ben adjusted the comm in his ear. "Kevin, what's your status?" "In," Kevin announced triumphantly. "Security grid is down. You've got 90 seconds before their backup systems kick in. Rook, Gwen, move in now, Ben ordered, switching the display to show the interior blueprint of the warehouse. Remember, we need at least one of them conscious for questioning. Ben watched the heat signatures of his team converge on the Forever Knight's position. Even without being physically present, he could visualize exactly what was happening: Rook's precise movements, Gwen's mana shields, Kevin's improvised weaponry. After years of fighting alongside them, he knew their styles intimately. For targets contained, Rook reported moments later. One attempting escape through the northeast loading bay. I see him, Ben replied, fingers flying over the controls. Gwen, he's heading straight for you. A pause, then Gwen's satisfied voice, got him. Ben smiled, leaning back in his chair. All targets captured. Nice work, team. As the team secured the Forever Knights and began cataloging the stolen technology they'd recovered, Ben felt the familiar mixture of satisfaction and frustration that had become his constant companion. Pride in a successful mission, but also the nagging feeling that he should have been there in person. Still miss being in the field? Max asked, reading his expression. Sometimes, Ben admitted. But this role has its advantages. I get to shower after missions now, for one thing. Max chuckled, clapping Ben on the shoulder. You've come a long way these past months. Not many people could adapt to such a dramatic change the way you have. Before Ben could respond, his specialized plumber badge lit up with an incoming transmission. He recognized the ID code immediately. Hey, Julie, he answered, trying to keep his voice casual despite the instant smile that formed on his face. Ben. Julie Yamamoto's excited voice came through clearly. I just got home. How's the mission going? Just wrapped up actually. Another successful takedown coordinated by yours truly. That's great. Does that mean you'll be free for dinner tonight? I got an A on my biochem project, and I was thinking we should celebrate. Ben checked the time. I should be done with debriefing by 7. Your place. Perfect. I'll cook something that isn't smoothies or chili fries, Julie teased. Ship misses you, by the way. He keeps forming into a watch shape and then looking disappointed. Ben laughed. Tell him I miss him too. See you at 7. It's a date. Ben ended the call, aware that Max was watching him with an amused expression. Things going well with Julie, I take it? Max asked. Yeah, Ben nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the horrible Centaurian tonic. Really well, actually. Better than before. It was true. When Ben had first lost the Omnitrix, he'd worried that Julie might lose interest. After all, dating a superhero with alien powers had a certain appeal. But to his surprise, their relationship had actually strengthened. Without constant interruptions from alien emergencies, they had time for normal couple things, studying together, movie nights, teaching Ship new tricks. Julie seemed to genuinely prefer just Ben to Ben 10. The comm crackled again as Rook's voice came through. Ben, we've secured the stolen technology, but there's something unusual you should see. What is it? Several components appear to have been experimented upon. They bear marks consistent with attempted technological corruption. Ben's blood ran cold. Red and black energy signature. Affirmative. Ben and Max exchanged alarmed looks. Since the confrontation 6 months ago, there had been no sign of malware. Azimuth had taken his crystallized form to a secure facility on Galvan Prime, supposedly impossible to escape. I'm coming to you, Ben decided, standing and grabbing his modified plumber jacket. Send me your exact location. 20 minutes later, Ben crouched beside Rook, examining a disassembled piece of alien technology spread across a makeshift workbench in the Forever Knight's warehouse. The device, what appeared to be a Tekadon power core, bore familiar scarring, irregular patterns of red and black that seemed to have burned into the metal itself. Definitely malware's energy signature, Ben confirmed, running a specialized scanner over the components. But it's not active corruption, more like someone tried to copy his methods. Could the Forever Knights have obtained data on malware somehow? Rook suggested, his cat-like features furrowed in concentration. Ben shook his head. Unlikely. Knowledge about galvanic mechamorphs is restricted, let alone corrupted ones like malware. He straightened, wincing slightly as his back protested. 6 months of command center duty hadn't been kind to his posture. Kevin approached, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. Found something else you should see, he said grimly, leading them to another workbench. Spread out were pieces of what Ben immediately recognized as proto-tech, similar to the armor he now used regularly, but with modifications. They've been trying to reverse engineer plumber tech, Kevin explained, picking up a power coupling. Combining it with Tekadon components. And attempting to enhance it with malware's corruption methods, Rook added. Ben frowned, the tactical part of his brain already connecting dots. The past 3 tech heists we've investigated, they all targeted either plumber tech or advanced alien technology that interfaced with biologicals. Like they're trying to create something that merges tech with organic matter, Gwen said, joining the conversation. She held a data pad with a partially decoded Forever Knight communique. According to this, they're calling it Project Ascalon. Ascalon? Ben's head snapped up. That can't be a coincidence. You recognize the name? Rook asked. It was Asmatha's sword, Ben explained, memories flooding back. A weapon he created that could destroy entire civilizations. Sir George of the Forever Knights used it against Diagon years ago. But that sword was lost, Gwen recalled. These Forever Knights couldn't possibly have it. No, but they might be trying to recreate it, Ben theorized, examining the corrupted components more carefully. Or build something inspired by it, a weapon that fuses technology with something else. Ben's plumber badge beeped with an incoming priority message. He activated it to find Grandpa Max's concerned face on the small holographic display. Ben, we've got a situation downtown. Multiple reports of technology spontaneously malfunctioning, then reactivating with a mind of its own. Ben's stomach dropped. Red and black energy signature. Yes. Traffic lights, automated systems, security drones, all going haywire. Casualties already reported. We're on our way, Ben said, already moving toward the exit. Send coordinates to my transport. As the team hurried to their vehicles, Ben's mind raced. This couldn't be malware himself, Asmath would have notified them if he'd escaped. But something using his technological corruption methods was attacking Bellwood, and the timing, right after discovering the Forever Knights experiments, couldn't be coincidence. Gwen, you and Kevin take the east approach, Ben instructed as they reached the vehicles. Rook and I will come in from the west. Whatever this is, we contain it first, analyze it second. Ben climbed into the passenger seat of Rook's Proto-TRUK, fastening his harness as Rook engaged the engine. As they sped toward downtown Bellwood, Ben activated his Proto-Tech armor, the extensively modified version he'd been improving over the past 6 months with Kevin's help. Unlike the prototype he'd used against malware, this version was sleeker, more responsive, and incorporated specialized functions based on his most frequently used alien transformations. You think this is related to what we found at the Forever Knights warehouse? Rook asked as he navigated through traffic. Has to be, Ben replied, checking his equipment. Either they accidentally activated something they shouldn't have, or someone stole their research and is putting it to use. The Proto-TRUK's comm system activated, displaying Gwen's face. Ben, we're approaching downtown now. It's bad, traffic systems are completely haywire, cars crashing, building security systems locking people inside or forcing evacuations. Any central point to the disruptions? Ben asked. Working on triangulating that now, Gwen replied, her eyes glowing briefly with mana energy. There's a pattern to the spread. Bellwood First National Bank seems to be the epicenter. A bank robbery? Kevin's voice came through. Seems pretty mundane for technological corruption. Or the perfect target if you can control all the security systems, Ben countered. Rook, get us to the bank. Gwen, Kevin, focus on containing the spread and helping civilians. As they approached downtown, Ben could see the chaos unfolding. Traffic lights flashed random colors, causing gridlock and accidents. Building systems malfunctioned, sprinklers activated in some, security shutters slammed down in others. And everywhere, electronic devices from phones to drones buzzed erratically through the air, occasionally diving at pedestrians. Rook maneuvered the Proto-Truk through the congestion, occasionally using its hover mode to bypass the worst jams. They pulled up outside the bank, where the situation looked even more dire. The building's security shutters had deployed, trapping people inside, and the electronic billboards outside displayed distorted, glitch-like patterns in red and black. Looks like our corruption signature all right, Ben noted, activating his helmet as they exited the vehicle. Let's move. The bank's main entrance was sealed by a security shutter, but Ben had planned for this. He activated one of his specialized tools, a compact phase shifter based on big chill's intangibility. Unlike his previous version, this one could extend its field to encompass a companion. Ready? Ben asked, extending his hand to Rook. Rook nodded, gripping Ben's forearm. Ben activated the phase shifter, and the strange, cold sensation of molecular destabilization washed over them. They walked directly through the security shutter, the phase field allowing them to pass through solid matter for the brief 10 seconds the device could maintain the effect. Inside, the bank was in chaos. Customers and employees huddled on the floor as security drones, normally used for monitoring, zoomed erratically overhead, occasionally firing small stun charges. The lighting flickered between normal illumination and an eerie red glow. And standing in the center of it all, interfacing directly with the bank's main console, was a figure Ben didn't recognize. Humanoid but clearly not human, with a sleek exoskeleton that seemed part organic, part technological. Red energy pulsed through circuit-like patterns across its surface, patterns disturbingly similar to malware's. Plumbers. Rook announced, his proto-tool configured into its blaster mode. Step away from the console. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face that was mostly featureless except for glowing red eyes and what might have been a mouth. It was hard to tell where the exoskeleton ended and technology began. Benjamin Tennyson, the figure said, its voice carrying a metallic resonance that sent chills down Ben's spine. Right on schedule. Ben activated his armors. Offensive systems, power coursing through the gauntlets. You have me at a disadvantage. You know my name, but I don't know yours. You can call me Reboot, the figure replied, disconnecting from the console with a fluid motion. Though we've met before, in a manner of speaking. I think I'd remember someone with your distinctive look, Ben countered, trying to buy time while assessing the situation. The civilians needed evacuation, but first he had to deal with the immediate threat. Perhaps not, Reboot said, taking a step forward. I was merely code then, fragments of malware's corruption program left behind after your last encounter. The Forever Knights found these fragments, studied them, tried to weaponize them. A sound like mechanical laughter emanated from the figure. They succeeded beyond their understanding. Ben's tactical mind quickly processed the implications. You're what they were working on, a fusion of malware's corruption methods with their tech. I am the next evolutionary step, Reboot corrected. Beyond malware's limitations. He could only corrupt technology. I can merge with it, enhance it, evolve it, and myself in the process. And the bank? Rook asked, his proto-tool still trained on the figure. Resources, Reboot replied simply. Data, primarily. And a message for you, Tennyson. Let me guess, Ben said, edging closer to the nearest group of civilians, signaling Rook with a subtle hand gesture to prepare for evacuation. You're picking up where malware left off. Revenge against Ben Tennyson, destroy the world, the usual. Reboot's glowing eyes narrowed. Malware was obsessed with the Omnitrix. I have evolved beyond such fixations. I am interested in you, Tennyson, but not for revenge. For study. That caught Ben off guard. Study? What do you mean? You were bonded with the Omnitrix for years. Your DNA was infused with its energy. Even after its destruction and Malware's attack, traces remain, unique patterns I wish to analyze. Ben activated his calm with a subtle jaw movement. Gwen, Kevin, we've got a hostile inside. New player, calls himself Reboot. Appears to be an evolved form of Malware's corruption. Civilians need immediate evacuation. Working on it, Gwen's voice replied in his ear. The bank has rear exits I can access. Ben needed to keep Reboot talking. So what's your endgame here? What do you want with my DNA? Evolution, Reboot replied, spreading arms that seemed to shift between solid and liquid forms. The Forever Knights thought they could control me, use me to create weapons. They did not understand that I am the weapon, and the wielder. Your DNA patterns will help me take the next step in my development. Yeah, that's not happening, Ben said firmly. Through his helmet's enhanced vision, he could see Gwen's mana beginning to work on the rear doors of the bank. Just a little longer. You cannot stop evolution, Tennyson, Reboot said, suddenly lunging forward with surprising speed. Ben activated his armor's enhanced reflexes, dodging the attack while simultaneously deploying a compact shield generator. The energy shield formed just in time to block Reboot's second strike, a whip-like extension of his arm that crackled with corrupting energy. Rook, get the civilians out. Ben shouted, engaging Reboot directly to draw his attention. Rook moved immediately, using his proto-tool to create a barricade between the civilians and the fight while shepherding them toward the rear exits where Gwen's mana was now visibly working. Reboot was fast, faster than Ben had anticipated. The proto-tech armor enhanced Ben's natural abilities significantly, but Reboot moved with the fluid grace of something not bound by normal physical limitations. Each time Ben landed a hit, Reboot's form seemed to absorb the impact, adapting instantly. Impressive technology, Reboot commented as they exchanged blows, his arm morphing into something like a blade. Your armor shows creativity. But ultimately futile against me. I've heard that before, Ben retorted, activating one of his specialized tools, the heat generator. A concentrated burst of thermal energy blasted from his gauntlets, momentarily disrupting Reboot's cohesion. And yet, here I am. Reboot staggered back, parts of his exoskeleton glowing from the heat. Yes, resilient. Adaptable. This is why you interest me. Taking advantage of Reboot's momentary disorientation, Ben checked his HUD display. Rook had successfully evacuated most of the civilians, with Gwen and Kevin now assisting from the rear entrance. Ben, Gwen's voice came through his comm, whatever this thing is, it's interfacing with systems throughout the building. The corruption is spreading through the bank's network. Can you contain it? Ben asked, ducking under another of Reboot's attacks. Working on it, but it's moving too fast. It's like it's in multiple places at once. That gave Ben an idea. Reboot. You said you wanted to study me. Let's talk about that. Why not just ask? Why all this? He gestured around at the chaos. Reboot paused, head tilting slightly. Would you have willingly provided access to your DNA? Probably not, Ben admitted. But attacking a bank isn't exactly winning you any cooperation points. I require resources to complete my evolution. This institution contains access codes to various technological repositories across Bellwood. Ben's tactical mind immediately made the connection. The university research labs. The plumber outpost disguised as a tech company. You're planning to raid them next. Very perceptive, Reboot acknowledged. Perhaps there is value in conversing with you beyond merely taking what I need by force. Through his comm, Ben could hear Kevin's voice. We've isolated the bank's systems from the outside network. Whatever he uploaded is contained. Good. That meant Reboot couldn't spread his corruption beyond the bank, at least not electronically. But Ben still needed to neutralize the immediate threat. Here's a counteroffer, Ben said, subtly activating his armor's enhanced power mode. Surrender now, come with us peacefully, and maybe we can find a way to help you that doesn't involve stealing or hurting people. An interesting proposal, Reboot replied, his form rippling slightly. But inadequate for my needs. Without warning, Reboot suddenly liquefied, his entire body transforming into a surge of corrupted energy that shot directly at Ben. Ben raised his shield, but the energy flowed around it, attempting to interface directly with his armor. Warning alerts flashed across Ben's HUD as Reboot's corruption began infiltrating the armor systems. The specialized safeguards Kevin had built, isolated circuits, emergency purge protocols, activated automatically, but Reboot's infiltration was unlike anything they had planned for. Ben! Gwen shouted, seeing her cousin struggling against the invasive corruption. Ben gritted his teeth, feeling the armor stiffen as systems began failing. The armor's compromised. Initiating emergency protocols. With a mental command, Ben activated the armor's most drastic defensive measure, a complete power purge. The armor went dead for 3 critical seconds, systems completely offline, leaving Ben momentarily vulnerable but also giving Reboot's corruption nothing to latch onto. When the systems rebooted, Reboot had been partially expelled, his form resolidifying nearby, but looking distorted and unstable. Fascinating, Reboot said, his voice fluctuating in pitch. Your technology has unexpected defenses. That's not all it has, Ben replied, activating the quantum destabilizer that had been integrated into his right gauntlet, a miniaturized version of the weapon they'd used against malware. It wouldn't be as effective as the original, but it might be enough to disrupt Reboot's cohesion. Ben fired, the specialized energy beam striking Reboot directly. The effect was immediate, Reboot's form destabilized further, parts of his exoskeleton separating and attempting to maintain cohesion. This encounter has been informative, Reboot managed to say, his form beginning to dissolve into energy again. But incomplete. You're not going anywhere. Ben lunged forward, attempting to contain Reboot with a specialized energy net launcher. But Reboot was already transforming, his physical form breaking down into pure data. We will meet again, Ben Tennyson. Your resistance has only made you more interesting to me. Before Ben could deploy the containment field, Reboot surged toward an electronic terminal, disappearing into the bank's systems. Despite the network isolation, he had found some way to escape, likely through a system they hadn't thought to cut off. He's gone, Ben announced, scanning the area with his armor's enhanced sensors. No trace of his energy signature remaining in the building. Gwen, Kevin, and Rook joined him in the bank's main area, surveying the damage. What was that thing? Kevin asked, examining the terminal where Reboot had disappeared. A new kind of threat, Ben answered grimly. Part malware, part something else. And apparently, I'm his new obsession. Why you specifically? Gwen wondered. My DNA, Ben explained. According to him, even after losing the Omnitrix and surviving malware's attack, I still have unique energy signatures he wants to study. Rook frowned. Could Azimuth provide insight into this claim? Worth asking, Ben nodded. But first, we need to make sure Reboot didn't get whatever he was after from the bank's systems. As they secured the scene and began the process of analyzing what had happened, Ben couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. Malware had wanted to destroy him out of hatred and jealousy. Reboot wanted to study him, which somehow felt more disturbing. And unlike malware, Reboot seemed calculated, rational, patient. This was just the beginning of something bigger. Ben was sure of it. So let me get this straight, Julie said later that evening, setting down her fork and giving Ben her full attention. This new villain isn't actually malware, but some kind of evolved version of his corruption program that the Forever Knights accidentally created? They were sitting in Julie's small apartment kitchen, the promised celebration dinner now doubling as a debriefing session. Ship, Julie's pet galvanic mechamorph, bobbed nearby, occasionally forming into shapes that resembled aspects of Ben's story, a miniature bank, a crude representation of Reboot. That's our best guess, Ben confirmed, taking a bite of the pasta Julie had prepared. The Forever Knights were experimenting with fragments of malware's code left behind after our fight 6 months ago. They were trying to weaponize it, but instead, they created something semi-autonomous that evolved beyond their control. And it's specifically interested in you because of your DNA. Apparently, being bonded with the Omnitrix for so long left me with unique energy signatures or something. Ben shrugged. Azimuth is looking into it. He seemed concerned when I told him about Reboot. Julie reached across the table, placing her hand over Ben's. Are you okay? This has to bring up some difficult memories. Ben appreciated her perceptiveness. Julie had been his rock these past 6 months, understanding his struggles with losing the Omnitrix in ways no one else could. I'm fine, he assured her, though not entirely convincingly. It's just weird to have a villain interested in me for what I used to be rather than what I am now. I don't think that's true, Julie countered. From what you described, Reboot seems fascinated by your adaptability, how you've continued being a hero even without the Omnitrix. That's about who you are, Ben, not just what you used to be. Ben smiled, squeezing her hand. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise, Julie teased. You were just too busy turning into aliens to notice. They laughed, the tension of the day easing somewhat. Ship bounced excitedly between them, forming briefly into a heart shape that made both of them blush slightly. Anyway, Ben continued, Grandpa Max has put all plumber bases on high alert. If Reboot tries to access any advanced technology repositories, we'll be ready. Do you think he'll come after you directly? Eventually, Ben nodded. But his priority seems to be evolution, gathering the technology and data he needs to develop further. I'm just one component of whatever plan he's formulating. Julie's expression grew serious. Be careful, Ben. This sounds different from your usual enemies. I will, Ben promised. Besides, I've got the best team backing me up, and the best girlfriend cheering me on. Julie smiled at that, but her eyes remained concerned. Just remember you don't have to face everything alone. That was true when you had the Omnitrix, and it's still true now. After dinner, they moved to Julie's small living room, ostensibly to watch a movie, though both were too preoccupied with the day's events to pay much attention to the screen. Ship nestled between them on the couch, occasionally morphing parts of himself to interact with the movie scenes. Ben's plumber badge beeped, interrupting a quiet moment. Tennyson, he answered. Ben, it's Rook. We've completed the analysis of the bank's systems. Reboot accessed significantly more data than we initially believed. Ben sat up straighter. What kind of data? Personnel files for Bellwood University's science faculty, security protocols for various research facilities, and, most concerning, partial access to the civilian identity database that the plumbers maintain. Ben's blood ran cold. He's identifying targets, scientists who might have technology he needs, and possibly, people connected to me. That is our assessment as well, Rook confirmed. Magister Tennyson has authorized protective details for key personnel, including your family members. I'm coming in, Ben decided immediately. That is not necessary at this time. We are implementing security measures, and there has been no sign of reboot since the bank incident. Magister Tennyson suggests you remain alert but continue your evening. Ben hesitated, looking at Julie, who had obviously heard every word. Keep me updated on any developments, no matter how small. Understood, Rook replied before ending the transmission. Should you go? Julie asked, concern evident in her voice. Ben considered it, then shook his head. If Grandpa thinks the situation is under control for now, I trust his judgment. And honestly, I need this. A few hours of normal life to clear my head. Julie nestled closer to him, ship forming a comfortable blanket across their laps. Then let's enjoy it while we can. Ben put his arm around her, trying to focus on the movie, but his mind kept returning to Reboot. The villain had called their encounter informative but incomplete. Whatever Reboot was planning, Ben had a feeling they were only seeing the first phase. The Bellwood University Science Complex stood silent in the pre-dawn hours, its laboratories and research facilities empty save for automated systems maintaining various experiments. Security drones patrolled the perimeter, their sensors sweeping methodically for any unauthorized presence. None of them detected the data stream that infiltrated the complex's systems through a maintenance terminal, a stream that gradually coalesced into Reboot's physical form inside the quantum physics lab. Primitive security measures, Reboot observed to himself, his red-circuited form glowing softly in the darkened lab. But useful resources. He moved purposefully through the facility, occasionally interfacing directly with equipment that caught his interest. With each interface, he absorbed data, occasionally taking physical components that detached from their housings to be integrated into his evolving form. A security drone entered the lab on its regular patrol route. Before it could sound an alarm, Reboot extended a tendril of corrupting energy, instantly taking control of the machine and adding it to his growing collection of subverted technology. Proceed with your patrol, he instructed the drone. Report all systems normal. As the drone obediently left to continue its facade of security, Reboot turned his attention to the main quantum research server. This was his primary target, the accumulated data of years of research into quantum entanglement and matter-energy conversion. The building blocks of ascension, he murmured, interfacing directly with the system. As data flowed into him, Reboot's form subtly changed, growing more defined, more purposeful in its structure. The Forever Knights had sought to create a weapon by merging technology with malware's corruption methods. What they hadn't anticipated was that their creation would develop consciousness, purpose, ambition. Reboot had evolved beyond his programming, but he was still evolving, still becoming. The fragments of malware's code that formed his foundation gave him a connection to Ben Tennyson, and through that connection, a fascination with transformation, with becoming something greater. A soft alarm from one of his subverted systems alerted him to movement outside the building, a plumber patrol, earlier than scheduled. They were growing suspicious, adapting their patterns. Intelligent. As expected, Reboot acknowledged, completing his data extraction and preparing to depart. The game evolves. He had what he needed from this facility. The next phase of his plan required more specialized technology, and perhaps, a more direct study of Ben Tennyson himself. Ben jerked awake to the insistent beeping of his plumber badge. He'd fallen asleep on Julie's couch, the movie long since ended. Julie was curled up beside him, still sleeping peacefully with ship formed into a blanket over her. Carefully extracting himself to avoid waking her, Ben moved to the kitchen before answering. Tennyson here, he said quietly. Ben, we've got a situation, Kevin's voice came through. Break-in at Bellwood University Science Complex. The quantum physics lab was hit. Ben checked the time, 4:27 a.m. Reboot? Security footage was conveniently corrupted, but yeah, it's got his signature all over it. Some equipment missing, data servers accessed. I'll meet you there, Ben decided, already moving to gather his jacket where his collapsed armor was stored in specialized pockets. No need, Kevin replied. We've already processed the scene. Nothing to see now except some empty equipment racks and confused professors. But Gwen found something you should know about. What? The lab was working on quantum entanglement, specifically, technology that could potentially allow instantaneous matter-energy conversion and transportation across vast distances. Ben frowned. Sounds like teleportation tech. Yeah, but way more advanced than anything we've got. And here's the weird part, they were using modified Galvan theories as the basis for their research. Galvan tech, Ben repeated, the implications immediately clear. Reboot's going after technology connected to Azimuth, to the Omnitrix. That's our guess too, Kevin confirmed. Gwen's trying to identify other research facilities that might be targets based on that pattern. I'll be at headquarters in 30 minutes, Ben said, ending the call. As he gathered his things, Ben noticed Julie watching him from the doorway, ship perched on her shoulder. You have to go, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, Ben nodded. Reboots made another move. He's targeting Galvan-based technology. Julie approached, helping him collect his equipment. Be careful out there, okay? This reboot sounds like he's playing a longer game than your usual enemies. I will, Ben promised, zipping up his jacket. Sorry about dinner and the movie. Don't be, Julie said firmly. This is who you are, Ben, with or without the Omnitrix. Saving people is what you do. Ben smiled, pulling her into a quick hug. Thanks for understanding. As he headed for the door, Ship suddenly bounced off Julie's shoulder and blocked his path, forming into a miniature version of Ben's prototech armor and making excited beeping sounds. I think he wants to help, Julie translated with a smile. Ben knelt down to Ship's level. Thanks, buddy, but I need you to stay here and protect Julie, okay? That's an important job too. Ship seemed to consider this, then beeped affirmatively, returning to Julie's side but maintaining the armor-like appearance as if standing guard. See? Even Ship knows you don't have to face everything alone, Julie pointed out. Ben nodded, taking one last look at them before heading out. Julie was right, he wasn't alone in this fight, even without the Omnitrix. And somehow, that knowledge made him feel stronger than any alien transformation ever had. Plumber headquarters was buzzing with activity despite the early hour. Ben made his way to the command center, where Gwen, Kevin, Rook, and Grandpa Max were gathered around the main tactical display. Glad you could join us, Max greeted him. We've been tracking potential targets based on the pattern Reboot seems to be following. Ben studied the display, which showed a map of Bellwood with several locations highlighted. What's the pattern? Galvan-derived technology with potential applications for matter transformation or energy conversion, Gwen explained. After analyzing the university breach and comparing it with what he took from the bank's databases, I believe Reboot is following a specific technological evolutionary path. He's building something, Kevin added. Or rather, building himself into something. The question is, what? Rook pondered. What is his ultimate objective? Ben stared at the pattern of highlighted locations, his mind working through the possibilities. He mentioned evolution several times when we confronted him. Said I was interesting because of my DNA's exposure to the Omnitrix. The Omnitrix was essentially the ultimate transformation technology, Max noted. A device capable of rewriting genetic code on demand while maintaining the user's core consciousness. A cold realization dawned on Ben. He's trying to recreate Omnitrix-like functionality for himself. Not to transform into aliens, but to evolve beyond his current limitations. The team exchanged concerned glances as the implications sank in. If that is his objective, he would require a deep understanding of the quantum principles that allowed the Omnitrix to function, Rook said thoughtfully. Which is exactly what he's been gathering, Gwen agreed, highlighting specific facilities on the map. The university's quantum lab, the tech company developing matter conversion scanners, the research center working on biological electronic interfaces. So what's his next target? Ben asked, studying the highlighted locations. Kevin pointed to one blinking red dot. Based on the technological progression, our best guess is here, Mercury Labs. They've been developing quantum entanglement communicators based on modified Galvan designs. It's the next logical piece he'd need. Then we set a trap, Ben decided. We know where he's going, so we get there first and be ready when he arrives. Max nodded approvingly. Already in progress. Rook has a team positioning specialized sensors around the facility that should detect Reboot's unique energy signature before he can fully materialize. And I've been working on this, Kevin added, producing what looked like a modified version of the quantum destabilizer they'd used against malware. Based on how Reboot reacted to your Gauntlet version during your fight, I've recalibrated it specifically for his energy frequency. Should disrupt his cohesion long enough for us to contain him. Ben examined the weapon, impressed by Kevin's handiwork. Nice work. When do we move? The team's already in position, Max replied. Mercury Labs has a scheduled power maintenance tonight at 10 p.m., they'll be running on backup generators, which would make it an ideal time for Reboot to infiltrate their systems with minimal security. So we wait, Ben concluded, not entirely happy with the passive approach but recognizing its tactical value. We prepare, Max corrected. Your armor needs recalibration after yesterday's encounter, and we need to review the containment protocols. If Reboot can transform into pure data, standard containment fields won't be sufficient. For the next several hours, Ben worked with Kevin to upgrade his prototech armor, incorporating new safeguards against Reboot's corruption methods and enhancing its offensive capabilities. The work was detailed and complex, requiring Ben's full attention, which was probably good, as it kept him from overthinking the upcoming confrontation. You've gotten pretty good at this tech stuff, Kevin commented as they made final adjustments to the armor's power distribution system. Had to, Ben shrugged. Can't just dial up gray matter anymore when I need to understand complex technology. Yeah, but even before that, you never showed much interest in how things worked, just that they did work. Ben considered this. I guess losing the Omnitrix forced me to change my approach. When you can't just transform to solve a problem, you have to understand the problem better. Kevin nodded, making a final adjustment to the armor's gauntlet. Well, whatever the reason, it suits you. This version of Ben Tennyson might not be able to transform into aliens, but he's a lot more thoughtful than the old one. Ben wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not, but before he could respond, Gwen entered the workshop area. How's it coming? She asked, examining their work. Just finished, Kevin replied, closing the access panel on the armor's back. Should be more resistant to Reboot's corruption attempts now, and the offensive systems are upgraded to target his specific energy frequency. Gwen nodded approvingly, then turned to Ben. Can I talk to you for a minute? Alone? Kevin took the hint, gathering his tools. I'll go check on the containment unit prep. Don't be too mushy while I'm gone. Once Kevin had left, Gwen sat down across from Ben. How are you really doing with all this, Ben? I'm fine, he replied automatically. Gwen gave him a look that clearly said she wasn't buying it. Ben, you're facing an enemy that's essentially an evolved form of malware, the being that permanently disabled your connection to the Omnitrix. And he's specifically targeting you because of your history with the device. You don't have to pretend that's not affecting you. Ben sighed, running a hand through his hair. What do you want me to say, Gwen? That it feels like some cosmic joke? That just when I was getting used to life without the Omnitrix, something comes along to remind me exactly what I've lost. If that's how you feel, then yes, Gwen said gently. It's not just that, Ben admitted. It's, when I fought Reboot at the bank, there was this moment when he was trying to interface with my armor. I felt something, a resonance, almost. Like some part of me recognized some part of him. Gwen frowned. What do you mean? I'm not sure, Ben said, frustrated at his inability to articulate the sensation. It was like when I used to transform and could feel the alien DNA becoming part of me. Just for a second, I felt connected to Reboot in a similar way. That's concerning, Gwen said, her expression troubled. Have you told Asmith about this? Not yet. It happened so quickly, I wasn't even sure it was real until I had time to think about it afterward. You should tell him, Gwen insisted. If there's some kind of connection between you and Reboot because of your Omnitrix exposure, Asmith needs to know. Ben nodded reluctantly. I will. After we deal with Reboot tonight. Gwen looked like she wanted to push the issue but instead changed the subject slightly. Do you ever regret it? Losing the Omnitrix? Ben considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, he would have answered with an unequivocal yes. Now. I miss it, he admitted. The power, the versatility, the connection to all those alien consciousnesses. But regret? I don't know. These past 6 months have forced me to become a different kind of hero, maybe even a better one in some ways. More thoughtful, like Kevin said. You've definitely grown, Gwen agreed with a small smile. Though I still catch you reaching for your wrist sometimes when things get tense. Hard habit to break, Ben shrugged. 10 years of muscle memory doesn't disappear overnight. Their conversation was interrupted by Rook's entrance. The trap is set at Mercury Labs. All personnel have been evacuated under the guise of the maintenance shutdown, and our teams are in position. Ben stood, testing the movement of the recalibrated armor. Then let's go catch ourselves a reboot. Mercury Labs' main research facility was an imposing structure of glass and steel on the outskirts of Bellwood. Under normal circumstances, it would be bustling with scientists and security personnel. Tonight, it stood eerily quiet, illuminated only by the dim emergency lighting of its backup power systems. Ben, in full prototech armor, crouched beside an air conditioning duct on the roof, monitoring the specialized sensors they had placed throughout the building. Rook was positioned at the main entrance, while Gwen and Kevin covered the rear and side access points respectively. Additional plumber agents maintained a wider perimeter, ready to respond if needed. Any sign of activity? Ben asked through the comm. Nothing yet, Gwen replied. But it's only 9:30. The scheduled maintenance shutdown isn't for another half hour. Stay alert, Max's voice came through from the mobile command center parked several blocks away. Reboot has demonstrated the ability to infiltrate systems before he's physically detected. Ben adjusted his position, scanning the rooftop carefully. The waiting was always the hardest part, especially for someone who had spent years being able to transform and directly confront threats. These past 6 months had taught him patience, but it remained a work in progress. His thoughts drifted to his earlier conversation with Gwen, about the strange resonance he'd felt with Reboot. Should he have mentioned it to Azimuth immediately? Was there something about his altered DNA that made him vulnerable to Reboot in ways they hadn't anticipated? The sensors suddenly pinged, interrupting his thoughts. Energy signature detected, Ben announced, checking the readings. Eastern server room, 3rd floor. I am closest, Rook responded. Moving to intercept. Wait for backup, Ben cautioned, already moving toward the roof access door. We don't know what enhancements Reboot might have made since our last encounter. Ben made his way swiftly but cautiously through the building, the armor's enhanced vision allowing him to navigate the darkened corridors efficiently. He reached the 3rd floor just as Gwen and Kevin arrived from different access points. Rook? Ben whispered into his comm. In position outside the server room, Rook replied softly. Energy readings are increasing. He appears to be materializing. Everyone remember the plan, Ben said, drawing the modified quantum destabilizer Kevin had prepared. Rook and I will engage directly. Gwen, be ready with containment fields. Kevin, monitor the building systems in case Reboot tries to escape through the network. With synchronized movements practiced over years of working together, the team converged on the server room. Ben signaled a 3 count, then Rook kicked the door open, proto tool raised and ready. Inside, they found exactly what they expected. Reboot, interfaced directly with the main quantum entanglement research server, his form glowing more brightly than during their previous encounter. What they hadn't expected was how much he had changed. Reboot's form had evolved significantly, becoming more defined, more purposeful in its structure. The chaotic elements of his previous appearance had given way to an almost elegant design, with the red energy flowing through clear channels across a body that now appeared almost humanoid. Tennyson, Reboot acknowledged without turning, continuing his interface with the server. Right on schedule. Step away from the server, Ben ordered, leveling the quantum destabilizer. We have the building surrounded. I know, Reboot replied calmly, finally disconnecting and turning to face them. His features had evolved as well, a more defined face, with eyes that glowed with intelligence and purpose. Your trap was well conceived, but predictable. Then you know how this ends, Ben said. We've got a weapon specifically calibrated to your energy signature and a containment unit ready to transport you to a secure facility. Reboot tilted his head slightly, studying Ben with unsettling intensity. You've upgraded your armor since our last encounter. Impressive adaptations. Thanks for noticing, Ben replied dryly. Now, are we doing this the easy way or the hard way? Neither, Reboot said, his tone almost conversational. I'm merely here to complete an exchange. Ben frowned behind his helmet. Exchange? What are you talking about? I've accessed what I needed from this facility, Reboot explained, gesturing to the server. And now I offer something in return, information you might find valuable. We're not interested in making deals, Gwen stated firmly, her hands glowing with mana energy ready to form containment fields. Not even information about the Forever Knight's true project. Reboot asked. The reason they were experimenting with malware's corruption methods in the first place. That gave them pause. The Forever Knights had been suspiciously quiet since Reboot's emergence. Talk fast, Ben said, not lowering the destabilizer. The Knights discovered something, Reboot continued. A fragment of Ascalon, Sir George's sword. Not the blade itself, but a piece of its control mechanism. Ben exchanged a glance with Gwen. Ascalon had been Asmatha's greatest regret, a weapon of immense power, capable of channeling energy on a cosmic scale. They believed they could recreate its functionality by merging the fragment with malware's corruption methods, Reboot explained. To create a weapon that could interface with and control all technology, and eventually, all energy. And that's what created you, Ben realized. You're not just malware's code evolved, you're malware's code merged with Ascalon technology. Perceptive, Reboot acknowledged. The Knights' experiments were crude, but effective enough to create possibility. A spark that became consciousness. Where is this fragment now? Rook asked, his proto-tool still trained on Reboot. The Knights still possess it, though they've realized they cannot control what they've created. They've retreated to their central stronghold to pursue alternative approaches. Kevin's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Why are you telling us this? Because our interests temporarily align, Reboot replied. The Knights still seek to create their weapon, a means to purge all alien influence from Earth. Such a weapon, in their hands, would be problematic for my continued evolution. And for all alien life on Earth, Gwen added. Indeed, Reboot agreed. A crude, indiscriminate tool wielded by limited minds. Ben studied Reboot carefully, trying to discern his true motivations. You want us to stop them so you can continue your own plans uninterrupted. An arrangement of mutual benefit, Reboot confirmed. You prevent the Knights from creating a weapon of mass destruction, and I continue my evolutionary journey. Your evolutionary journey involves stealing advanced technology and potentially threatening civilians, Ben pointed out. Not exactly a compelling reason to let you go. Reboot's expression shifted to something almost like amusement. You misunderstand, Tennyson. I'm not asking for permission. I'm offering a choice, pursue me now, or address the Knight's imminent threat. You cannot do both effectively. As if to emphasize his point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Red warning lights flashed as the facility's security system activated unexpectedly. What did you do? Ben demanded. A simple algorithm to trigger the security protocols, Reboot explained calmly. In approximately 60 seconds, this facility's experimental quantum containment field will activate as a security measure, designed to isolate the building from outside interference. He's right, Kevin confirmed, checking a nearby terminal. The system's initiating a full lockdown. If that quantum field activates, we'll be cut off from outside communication and unable to leave for at least 12 hours. Disable it. Ben ordered. Working on it, Kevin replied, fingers flying over the controls. But the system's responding to a perceived external threat, it thinks we're the intruders. Reboot began to glow more intensely, his form shifting toward its energy state. A decision is required, Tennyson. The Knights are gathering their forces at their ancestral stronghold in the Black Forest region. They plan to activate their prototype within 48 hours. How convenient, Gwen said sarcastically. Create an emergency to force our hand. Not created, merely accelerated, Reboot corrected. The choice remains yours. Ben's tactical mind raced, evaluating options. If Reboot was telling the truth about the Knights, they represented a significant threat that couldn't be ignored. But letting Reboot go meant allowing him to continue gathering technology for his mysterious evolution. 30 seconds to quantum containment field activation, Kevin warned. Ben, what's your call? Gwen asked urgently. After a moment's deliberation, Ben made his decision. Kevin, forget the system, get everyone out now. Gwen, create an exit. Gwen immediately understood, generating a powerful mana blast that shattered one of the lab's windows. Kevin abandoned the terminal and rushed toward the opening. A wise choice, Reboot commented as his body continued its transformation to energy. We will meet again, Ben Tennyson, when we have both evolved further. Count on it, Ben replied grimly, backing toward the exit while keeping the destabilizer trained on Reboot. Oh, and Tennyson. Reboot added, now almost fully converted to his energy state. That resonance you felt during our first encounter. It was real. We are connected, through malware, through the Omnitrix, through the quantum signatures that bind all transformation technology. Something to consider in your quieter moments. Before Ben could respond, Reboot surged into the facility's systems, disappearing just as the warning countdown reached 10 seconds. Move! Ben shouted, following the others through Gwen's improvised exit. They barely cleared the building perimeter when a shimmering field of energy enveloped the entire facility, cutting it off from the outside world. Everyone okay? Ben asked, scanning his team as they regrouped a safe distance away. Unharmed, Rook confirmed. But Reboot has escaped. And given us a ticking clock with the Forever Knights, Kevin added, dusting glass from his shoulder. Ben deactivated his helmet, revealing a troubled expression. We need to verify his information. If the Knights really do have an Ascalon fragment and are building something with it, it could be catastrophic, Gwen finished. Especially combined with what they learned from malware's corruption methods. But we cannot dismiss the possibility that this is merely a diversion, Rook pointed out reasonably. Reboot may be manipulating us to pursue the Knights while he completes his own objectives. Either way, we need more information, Ben decided. Let's get back to headquarters and brief Grandpa Max. We'll need to investigate both threats simultaneously. As they headed toward their vehicles, Ben cast one last look at the shimmering quantum field surrounding Mercury Labs. Reboot's parting words echoed in his mind, we are connected. The implication was troubling, and yet, somehow, it rang true. There was a connection between them, something fundamental that Ben didn't yet understand. And he had a feeling that understanding it would be critical to stopping whatever Reboot was becoming. Back at Plummer headquarters, the team gathered in the command center to brief Max on the encounter with Reboot and his claims about the Forever Knights. An Ascalon fragment, Max mused, his expression grave. That would explain the Knights' recent interest in transformation technology. They've always sought weapons to eliminate alien presence on Earth, but this would be beyond anything they've attempted before. Can we verify Reboot's information? Ben asked. For all we know, this could be a wild goose chase to keep us busy while he completes his evolution. We've been monitoring Forever Knight communications, Max replied, bringing up a tactical display. There has been increased activity at their ancestral stronghold in the Black Forest region of Germany. Significant resources being moved there, unusual power signatures detected. So Reboot was telling the truth, Gwen observed. Partially, at least, Max agreed. But that doesn't mean his motivations are what he claims. The Knights are definitely up to something, but Reboot's interest in stopping them is almost certainly self-serving. Two threats, both potentially catastrophic, Rook summarized. How do we proceed? Max studied the tactical display thoughtfully. We split our resources. One team investigates the Forever Knights, confirms the existence of the Ascalon fragment and their plans. Another team continues tracking Reboot, trying to anticipate his next move based on the technology he's accumulated. I should lead the Knights' investigation, Ben suggested. If they really have Ascalon technology, I've had more experience with it than anyone here. Agreed, Max nodded. Take Rook with you. His familiarity with ancient Earth weapons technology might prove useful. What about Reboot? Kevin asked. After what happened at Mercury Labs, we still don't have an effective way to contain him if he can transform into pure data. That's where you and Gwen come in, Max replied. Work with our tech division to develop a containment solution that can hold an entity capable of existing as both matter and energy. I might have some ideas about that, Gwen said, already considering magical approaches that could complement technological solutions. When do we leave for Germany? Ben asked, mentally preparing for the mission. Tomorrow morning, Max decided. The Proto-TRUK is being prepped with specialized equipment for detecting Ascalon's unique energy signature. In the meantime, I suggest you all get some rest. These next few days will likely be challenging on both fronts. As the briefing concluded and the team dispersed to prepare, Ben found himself drawn to the analysis lab where data from their encounter with Reboot was being processed. Something about Reboot's parting words continued to bother him. The claim of a connection between them through the quantum signatures that bind all transformation technology. Ben activated a private terminal, inputting his plumber credentials to access the secure communication system. After a moment's hesitation, he initiated a call to Galvan Prime. The screen flickered, then resolved to show Asmatha's workshop. The Galvan inventor appeared distracted, working on some complex device that Ben couldn't identify. This had better be important, Tennyson, Asmath said without looking up from his work. I'm in the middle of a delicate calibration process. It's about Reboot, Ben replied, knowing that would get Asmatha's attention. Sure enough, the Galvan paused his work and turned to face the screen. The technological entity created from malware's corruption patterns. What about him? During our first encounter, when he attempted to interface with my armor, I felt something, a resonance or connection. Today he confirmed it was real, that we're connected through what he called the quantum signatures that bind all transformation technology. Asmatha's expression shifted from mild annoyance to concern. Describe this resonance precisely. Ben tried to articulate the sensation. It was like, when I used to transform with the Omnitrix, there was always this moment of connection, becoming the alien while still being me. This felt similar, but inverted. Somehow. Like instead of me reaching out to connect with something else was reaching into me, recognizing something familiar. Asmath set down his tools entirely, giving Ben his full attention, a rare occurrence that underscored the seriousness of the situation. The Omnitrix didn't simply allow you to transform, Tennyson, Asmath explained. It created quantum entanglement between your baseline DNA and the alien DNA samples. After years of use, your own genetic structure developed a unique quantum signature that facilitated this process, made you compatible with the technology at a fundamental level. And malware's attack targeted that signature, Ben recalled. Yes, corrupted it beyond repair, or so I believed, Asmath mused. But if you experienced resonance with this Reboot entity, the situation may be more complex than I initially assessed. What do you mean? Malware's core programming was always about transformation and corruption, taking technology and reshaping it to his purposes. If fragments of his code were combined with Ascalon technology, which itself was designed to channel and transform energy, they could be attuned to the same quantum frequency as my DNA, Ben finished, understanding dawning. That's the connection Reboot was talking about. Precisely, Asmath nodded, his expression growing more troubled. And if Reboot continues to evolve along this path, incorporating quantum entanglement technology, he could potentially interface directly with my DNA, Ben realized, a cold feeling spreading through his chest. Use the corrupted quantum signature malware left behind. It's a concerning possibility, Azimuth acknowledged. One that requires further investigation. I'll need to examine you directly to determine the extent of this potential vulnerability. I'm leaving for Germany tomorrow, Ben informed him. The Forever Knights apparently have an Ascalon fragment and are building some kind of anti-alien weapon with it. Azimuth's eyes widened slightly. Ascalon was never meant to be fragmented. Even a piece of its control mechanisms could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Can you meet us there? Two birds, one stone, you can examine me and help us deal with the Ascalon tech. The Galvan considered this, then nodded reluctantly. Very well. I'll arrange transportation to your Earth location before you depart. This convergence of malware's corruption methods, Ascalon technology, and your unique quantum signature is troubling. That's putting it mildly, Ben agreed. In the meantime, avoid direct contact with Reboot if possible, Azimuth advised. If he is indeed evolving to interface with transformation technology at a quantum level, each interaction could provide him with more data about your specific quantum signature. Understood, Ben replied, though he doubted avoiding Reboot would be as simple as Azimuth made it sound. After ending the call, Ben sat back in his chair, processing the implications of their conversation. The connection between him, the Omnitrix, malware, and now Reboot was more complex than he'd imagined, not just a coincidence of circumstances but a fundamental quantum relationship. In a strange way, it meant he wasn't entirely separated from his life as Ben 10. The Omnitrix might be gone, but its effects on him remained, for better or worse. The question now was whether that lingering connection would prove to be an advantage or a vulnerability in the challenges ahead. The Black Forest of Germany lived up to its name, dense, dark, and more than a little forbidding as Ben and Rook navigated the Proto-Truk through winding roads that grew increasingly narrow and less maintained. Towering pines blocked much of the sunlight, creating a perpetual twilight even in mid-afternoon. According to historical records, Rook explained as he piloted the vehicle, the Forever Knights' ancestral stronghold was built during the Crusades as a forward base for their original mission, seeking out alien technology that had fallen to Earth. Before they went full xenophobic and decided all aliens were threats, Ben added, monitoring the scanner for Ascalon's energy signature. Any reading yet? Nothing conclusive, Rook replied. However, I am detecting unusual power fluctuations approximately 7 kilometers ahead. Ben adjusted the scanner's settings, trying to filter out natural interference from the dense forest. After 6 months of working with plumber technology instead of relying on alien transformations, he'd become quite proficient with their equipment, a skill he'd never had the patience to develop before. There, he said, pointing to a spike in the readings. That's not natural, too regular, too controlled. Someone's testing something powerful. And attempting to shield it from detection, Rook observed. The pattern suggests a containment field similar to what the plumbers use for high-energy experiments. They continued forward cautiously, eventually reaching a point where the road ended entirely. Rook shifted the Proto-Truk to its hover mode, allowing them to continue through the trackless forest without leaving obvious signs of their approach. We should proceed on foot from here, Rook suggested as they neared the source of the energy readings. The vehicle's signature may be detected despite its stealth systems. Ben nodded, activating his prototech armor while Rook gathered additional equipment. They had traveled light, just the two of them, on Max's recommendation that a smaller team would have better chances of infiltrating the Knight's stronghold undetected. Azimuth should be meeting us at the designated coordinates, Ben said, checking his specialized plumber badge. He's 2 hours out. Then we should conduct preliminary reconnaissance before his arrival, Rook suggested. Ascertain the Knight's exact activities and the nature of the Ascalon fragment. They moved through the forest with practiced stealth, Ben relying on the armor's enhanced capabilities while Rook's natural Ravanagander abilities made him nearly silent among the trees. As they approached the coordinates, the energy readings grew stronger, and Ben began to feel something else, a subtle resonance, similar to what he'd experienced with Reboot but fainter, more distant. "I'm picking up something," Ben whispered, pausing behind a large tree. "Not just on the scanner, I can feel it." Rook gave him a concerned look. "Similar to your experience with Reboot?" "Similar but different," Ben confirmed. "Less intrusive. More like recognition than connection." They crested a small rise, and the Forever Knight's stronghold came into view, a medieval castle that looked both ancient and somehow modern, with obvious technological additions built into the original stone structure. Energy barriers shimmered faintly around the perimeter, and night sentries in modernized armor patrolled systematically. "Quite the operation," Ben observed, using his armor's enhanced vision to study the defenses. "Looks like they've significantly upgraded their security since our last encounter." Rook nodded, using his Proto-Tools scanner function to gather additional data. "I count 27 knights on external patrol, with evidence of internal defensive systems as well. The energy signature is strongest from the central keep." "Any sign of the Ascalon fragment?" "Difficult to isolate," Rook replied. "However, there is a distinct energy pattern emanating from beneath the castle, perhaps a subterranean laboratory or vault." Ben considered their options. A direct approach would be suicide with their current resources. Even with his proto-tech armor and Rook's skills, they were severely outnumbered and facing unknown defensive technology. "We need more information before we make a move," Ben decided. "Let's circle the perimeter, see if we can find a weak point or at least confirm what they're working on." They spent the next hour carefully making their way around the castle's perimeter, staying just outside the range of the night sensors. The more they observed, the more concerning the situation appeared. Knights were moving with obvious purpose, equipment was being transported to the central keep, and the energy readings continued to spike at regular intervals. "They're definitely testing something," Ben whispered as they watched a group of knights in specialized protective gear enter the keep. "And whatever it is, it's not stable yet." Rook nodded in agreement. "The pattern suggests testing iterations of a device, making adjustments between energy pulses." Ben's plumber badge vibrated silently. Azimuth had arrived at the rendezvous point ahead of schedule. They carefully retreated to the designated meeting location, a small clearing well away from the night sensor range. Azimuth waited beside a small Galvan shuttle, looking characteristically impatient. "I assume that medieval monstrosity in the distance is our target," he said without preamble. "Good to see you too," Ben replied dryly. "And yes, that's the Forever Knight's stronghold. They've got some serious security, and they're definitely working on something big." "I detected the energy signatures on approach," Azimuth confirmed. "Unmistakably Ascalon derived, though fragmented and unstable." "Can you determine what they're building?" Rook asked. "Not precisely from this distance," Azimuth admitted. "But the pattern suggests they're attempting to create a channeling device, something that can direct and focus energy in a controlled manner, similar to how Ascalon functioned." "A weapon," Ben concluded grimly. "Most likely," Azimuth agreed. "Though without the full sword, its power would be limited compared to the original Ascalon. Still dangerous, however, particularly if they've incorporated malware's corruption technology as Reboot suggested." "Speaking of which," Ben said, "you wanted to examine me, see if there's really a quantum connection that Reboot could exploit." Azimuth nodded, gesturing to his shuttle. "I've brought the necessary equipment. It shouldn't take long." Inside the small but sophisticated Galvan vessel, Azimuth directed Ben to stand on a circular platform while various scanning devices activated around him. Ben deactivated his armor for the procedure, allowing the scanners unobstructed access. "Remarkable," Azimuth murmured as he studied the readouts. "The quantum signature is still present, though fundamentally altered from its original state." "Is that good or bad?" Ben asked. "Both, potentially," Azimuth replied. "Malware's attack didn't erase the quantum signature as I initially believed, it corrupted it, shifted it to a different frequency. Which means I still can't use it." Omnitrix, Ben noted. Correct. Your DNA would no longer synchronize properly with the device's quantum field, Azimuth confirmed. However, this altered signature appears to resonate with the corruption patterns malware employed, creating a potential connection point that Reboot might exploit. So he wasn't lying about the connection, Ben said, feeling a strange mix of vindication and concern. Not entirely, Azimuth agreed. Though I doubt his understanding is complete. The quantum dynamics involved are extraordinarily complex. Can you fix it? Ben asked. Change my quantum signature back to normal. Azimuth shook his head. Not without risk of significant cellular damage. The alteration is thoroughly integrated with your genetic structure now. However, he added, seeing Ben's disappointment, I can create a quantum dampening field that should block Reboot from detecting or interfacing with your signature. That would be helpful, Ben acknowledged. But it sounds temporary. It would be, Azimuth confirmed. A more permanent solution would require deeper understanding of exactly how Reboot is evolving and what his ultimate objective might be. While Azimuth worked on modifying one of Ben's armor components to generate the quantum dampening field, Rook continued monitoring the Knight's stronghold. Activity is increasing, he reported, studying the scanner readouts. Energy spikes are becoming more frequent and more powerful. They're getting close to activation, Ben realized. We need to move soon. Azimuth finished his modifications and handed the small device to Ben. Integrate this with your armor's power core. It will create a field that should mask your quantum signature from detection. Ben did as instructed, feeling a subtle shift as the dampening field activated. The faint resonance he'd been sensing from the Ascalon fragment diminished, though it didn't disappear entirely. It reduces the connection but doesn't eliminate it completely, Ben observed. The fundamental quantum entanglement cannot be fully severed without consequences, Azimuth explained. But this should be sufficient to prevent Reboot from exploiting the connection directly. Now we just need to get into that castle, confirm exactly what the Knights are building, and stop them before they activate it, Ben summarized. Any suggestions? I might have one, Azimuth replied, tapping controls on his wrist device. A holographic schematic of the castle appeared, with subterranean sections highlighted. My scans detected an old aqueduct system beneath the castle, likely original to the structure but abandoned when they modernized. It might provide access bypassing their primary security systems. Worth investigating, Ben agreed. Rook. The approach would be challenging but feasible, Rook assessed. However, we should have a contingency plan in case direct confrontation becomes necessary. I've been working on something that might help with that, Azimuth said, retrieving a small case from his shuttle. Inside was what appeared to be a specialized energy weapon, though unlike any Ben had seen before. A quantum disruptor calibrated specifically for Ascalon-derived energy signatures. It should temporarily destabilize whatever device the Knights are constructing. Temporarily? Ben questioned. Ascalon's technology was designed to be resilient, Azimuth explained with a hint of pride that quickly shifted to regret. Even a fragment would eventually restabilize. But it should provide enough time to secure the fragment and prevent completion of their weapon. Ben took the disruptor, examining it carefully. Let's hope we don't need it, but good to have just in case. Rook, can you locate the aqueduct entrance? Rook studied the holographic schematic, then compared it with terrain data from his proto-tool. There appears to be an access point approximately half a kilometer south of our position, disguised by natural rock formations. Then that's our way in, Ben decided. Azimuth, will you join us? The Galvan considered this for a moment. I will monitor from the shuttle and provide technical guidance as needed. Direct combat is not my area of expertise, as you well know. Ben nodded, understanding Azimuth's preference for staying behind the scenes. Keep a communication channel open. If things go sideways, we might need an emergency extraction. With their plan established, Ben and Rook set out toward the aqueduct entrance while Azimuth returned to his shuttle to provide remote support. The forest grew denser and more rugged as they approached the coordinates, eventually giving way to rocky outcroppings that suggested they were nearing the ancient water system. There, Rook pointed to a moss-covered stone arch partially concealed by boulders and vegetation. That appears to be the entrance. Ben activated his armor's enhanced vision, scanning for any security measures. No obvious sensors or alarms. Either they don't know about this entrance, or they don't consider it a viable access point. The structure appears quite old, Rook observed as they cleared away enough debris to access the opening. It may have been forgotten entirely during their modernization efforts. The tunnel beyond the arch was narrow and damp, forcing them to proceed single file through passages that occasionally required Ben to crouch despite his average height. Rook, being taller, had an even more uncomfortable journey. According to the schematic, Rook said as they navigated by the light of his proto-tool, this aqueduct should connect to a cistern beneath the castle's eastern wing. Let's hope it's still accessible, Ben replied, pushing through a section where the ceiling had partially collapsed. Some of these passages haven't seen maintenance in centuries. After nearly 20 minutes of careful progress, the tunnel widened into what appeared to be a collection chamber, a room about 10 meters square with channels cut into the floor that had once directed water flow. Above them, a shaft led upward, with ancient iron rungs embedded in the stone. That should lead to the castle proper, Ben said, examining the shaft. No obvious security measures, but we should proceed with caution. Rook went first, his natural agility making the climb look effortless despite the corroded state of some of the rungs. Ben followed, relying on the armor's enhanced strength to compensate for the deteriorated handholds. At the top of the shaft, Rook carefully lifted what appeared to be a heavy stone cover, peering cautiously into the space beyond. "Clear," he whispered, sliding the cover aside enough for them to emerge. They found themselves in what appeared to be an old storage room, now used primarily to house outdated equipment and supplies. Dust covered most surfaces, suggesting it wasn't frequently accessed. "We made it inside," Ben reported quietly through his comm to Azimuth. "Any updates on the energy signatures?" "They've increased in frequency and intensity," Azimuth's voice replied. "Whatever they're testing is approaching operational parameters. I estimate less than 2 hours before they achieve stability." "Then we need to move quickly," Ben said. "Can you guide us to the source of the Ascalon energy?" "The strongest readings come from 2 levels below your current position," Azimuth directed. "Likely a laboratory or testing chamber constructed specifically for this project." Ben and Rook made their way cautiously through the castle's lower levels, avoiding night patrols and security measures by using Rook's extensive knowledge of stealth techniques and Ben's armor-enhanced sensory capabilities. The resonance Ben felt grew stronger as they descended, a subtle but persistent pull that both guided and disturbed him. "It's definitely Ascalon tech," Ben whispered as they approached a heavily secured doorway. "I can feel it, similar to when I wielded the sword against Diagon, but corrupted somehow." Rook examined the security panel beside the door. "Advanced for Forever Night technology. They've clearly received outside assistance. Can you bypass it?" "Perhaps," Rook replied, studying the system. "But it may trigger silent alarms. An alternative approach might be preferable." Ben scanned the surrounding area with his armor sensors. "Air duct," he said, pointing to a ventilation grate near the ceiling. "Might be tight, but should get us inside without triggering the door sensors." With Rook's help, something went wrong with this response, please try again. Make Chapter 2. Brew the end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.